A pink-haired woman sits alone. Swish! She holds a letter resolutely. Ugh! She stretches, tired from reading. Knock knock, a visitor is announced. Prince Liam. Ah! Lady Lisbeth eagerly welcomes him. Prince Liam enters with a maid. He approaches her with purpose. His gloved hand gently touches her hair. Elsbeth looks up, startled by his touch. Prince Liam gives her a charming smile. She looks back, flustered but captivated. Lisbeth explains she's reading old childhood letters, including one from him. She pulls a cherished letter from a box. Prince Liam smiles, reminiscing over the letter. He remembers it was from her first palace visit. A memory of young Lisbeth at the palace resurfaces. Lisbeth laughs at his serious face, but he finds her laughter excessive. He reflects on the past 11 years and their unexpected outcome. Prince Liam marvels at how Finland became the wealthiest territory. Her once poor, monster-plagued territory has been completely transformed. It is now a place filled with the laughter of children. Its industries have flourished, and its streets are vibrant. Finland has become a city secured from monsters. A narration praises the little girl with elegant handwriting for this incredible success. Prince Liam admits that even as a witness, he finds it unbelievable. He stares, asking if she's lying about her age. She's confused. He gives him a knowing smile. Lisbeth cryptically admits to hiding her true mental age. Her gaze holds a deep secret. She reveals this is her second life. In her past life, she became the crown prince's consort to save Finland, but the marriage only led to her land's resources being stolen. Ultimately, she died, used and discarded. Liam snaps her out of her thoughts, asking if she's all right. She steadies herself, ready for the present. Lisbeth proudly reveals a new technology, defensive magic imbued into jewels. Liam is astounded by the extraordinary craftsmanship. He suggests the piece would be perfect for her coronation. She laughs, offering him plenty more to choose from. A brown-haired man kisses her hand, praising the jewel for his own coronation. He declares it will enhance the reputation of her domain, Lisbeth, Finland's. Lisbeth confidently replies, of course. A powerful resolve shines in her eyes. She proudly declares her title, Lord of House Finlands. Donna bell tolls as she introduces herself, Lisbeth Finlands. She was born the daughter of the Margrave Finlands. Through a political marriage, she became Lisbeth Alberch. A male voice recalls his shock that his sister became the 10th concubine. Two noblewomen gossip with cruel smiles. A voice expresses relief at not being the one marrying the prince, as Lisbeth stands alone. Whispers reveal Prince Reinhardt has a favorite concubine. Her marriage is deemed a sufficient connection for her family. More cruel whispers reveal the marriage is for Finland's minds. The gossips mockingly call her Princess Pebbles. A silhouetted Lisbeth stands amidst shimmering crystals. She acknowledges the rumors about the political union. Still, she hoped the marriage would financially support her territory. That was her resolve on her wedding day. Chirp, chirp, she sits alone in a vast empty room. Chirp on what was supposed to be their first night. Tugshi knew from the start it was a loveless marriage. She accepts that her path will not be easy. She sees a vision of her husband with another woman. She was just an extra that came with the mines. Her days at the royal palace passed without any interaction. The scene shifts to a bright room with messenger birds. A white bird with a satchel takes flight. Peep, peep, the birds are thanked for their work. A gray-haired man receives a document from a monstrous hand. Tip-tap, two maids spot Lisbeth's servant walking down the hall. They gossip about how Lady Lisbeth just stays locked away. Tip-tap, the maids mock her as the ignored 10th concubine. Knock knock, the blonde maid, Elsha, arrives at a door. Creak, the door opens to reveal Lisbeth sitting by the window. Lisbeth turns with a beautiful, radiant smile. She asks if any letters have arrived. Elsha confirms they have. Elsa presents a black envelope with a blue wax seal. Lisbeth opens the letter, thanking Elsha. She apologizes for always troubling her maid. She holds the letter, her face bright with happiness. She recalls spending her time in the library. There she met Lady Sophiana, a fellow consort. They became friends, and Sophiana introduced her to others. Liam St. Harold. A letter from Prince Liam brings her immense joy. She beams, clutching the letter close to her heart. The letter's contents make her think of delicious bread. Determined to reply, she asks Elsha for stationery. Elsa agrees and presents a quill and paper. She smiles, ready to begin writing her response. The letters she received were her window to a new world. She learned of research, trade routes, and foreign affairs. These letters were the only thing that kept her going. She signs her reply, Lisbeth Albrecht, but those joyful days came crashing down. Clang Lisbeth is trapped behind bars. She looks up in shock as a voice yells, "You traitor!" Ikshi reaches for the man, asking what she's done, but he demands silence. Stanley, a smirking, blonde-haired man, replies, "Yes, Your Highness." A blonde-haired man with glowing red eyes tears a letter in half. Reef declares he never imagined a concubine would conspire against him. From behind bars, Lisbeth screams her innocence, but he accuses her of trying to seize the kingdom. A masked man in a military uniform stands in the doorway. As the letter falls, she desperately thinks that she's never written anything to harm the kingdom. Clang, the blonde-haired man, dismisses her pleas as she begs him to wait. Alone in her cell, she reaches out in utter despair. Her pleas for innocence fell on Prince Reinhardt's deaf ears as time passed. Clatter, a plate with a single loaf of bread, is served with the words, "It's time to eat." Lisbeth lies weakly on the cold, hard floor of her prison cell. Ha! She breathes weakly, her life fading. She remembers the simple joy she found in exchanging letters. A fiery image suggests a brutal end. Her body lies still on the wooden floor. In her final moments, she clutches the blue rose seal from her letters. She recalls asking her maid, Elsha, about Prince Liam's country. She kisses the seal, wishing she could have learned more about the world beyond those letters. A framed message echoes her desire. So much more she wanted to learn. She thinks her vision is getting blurry as a single tear falls. Her hands gently cradle the precious blue wax seal. She mourns the different life she could have lived. Sinking into an abyss, she reflects that her life was a complete disaster. Surrounded by the gears of time, she wishes to taste the food from her homeland one last time. Her final thought is of home, as a young, pink-haired girl awakens. A bright light shines through fresh green leaves. A white teddy bear sits on a chair in a sunlit room. A bird chirps softly outside her window. Her small hand rests on a yellow floral dress. The young girl gasps, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Drip. She covers her face, overcome with tears. Typher's bare feet touch the floor as she thinks how strange everything is. She stands before a full-length mirror next to the teddy bear. The mirror sparkles, waiting to reveal her reflection. She stares, shocked to see her own tear-streaked, childlike face. Her small feet stand on the wooden floor, emphasizing her tiny frame. Thud. She collapses to her knees in disbelief. Tears of confusion and shock stream down her face. Her eyes widen in a moment of sudden, stark realization. She sits on the floor, stunned by her new reality. Tasha stands with determination, deciding to see for herself immediately. She rushes toward a white door in her room. Hearing a knock, she eagerly calls out, "Come in!" Creak, the door slowly opens. A brown-haired maid apologizes for her lateness, addressing her as Lady Liz. Lana Lisbeth cries out joyfully, running to embrace her maid. Oh, the maid, Lana, is surprised by this sudden emotional hug. Lana returns the embrace, holding the crying child tightly. The maid's voice gently asks if she had a nightmare. Crying into Lana's shoulder, Lisbeth confirms that it was a very bad dream. The scene flashes to a man sitting alone at a desk in a dark room. Lana recalls fiercely opposing the ridiculous marriage proposal. Lisbeth thinks of her trusted maid, Lana. She feels herself calming down. Lisbeth beams, saying Lana's presence helps. Squeeze. She gives Lana a tight, reassuring hug. Lana vows to always protect her from nightmares. Splash Lana prepares a basin of water. Lisbeth asks to have breakfast with her father. Lana smiles at the sweet request. Lana reminds her the whole family is home. A sudden realization strikes Lisbeth. The narration explains Finland's dangerous border. The family's duty began with slaying a dragon. Their sacred duty is to guard the capital. Knights stand ready for the constant battle. Lisbeth recalls witnessing the monster threat firsthand. Lana leads the young girl through the manor. Monster invasions constantly destroy their land and progress. Their territory remains undeveloped and bleak, but the land holds one great advantage. Its mines. Clenched rare ores are key to powerful weapons. Lana gently braids Lisbeth's long pink hair. Lisbeth asks Lana about the rest of her family. Lana reports on her stepmother and stepsister's plans. Bathumper heart sinks at the thought of her stepmother. She recalls her stepmother's cruel delight over the marriage. They reveled in her fate as the 10th concubine. She remembers being hastily married off and discarded. The family she married into was no better. Her husband coldly dismissed her and her efforts. The court gossiped. calling her the worthless pebble girl. She questions why she ever endured such misery. But not all her memories of the palace were bad. In her loneliness, she befriended Lady Sophiana. Through letters, she found true friends and joy. Those happy days of writing ended when she died. Back in the present, Lana announces she's ready. Lisbeth beams, dressed beautifully for the day. Looking out the window, she wonders if this is her second chance. Lana's voice calls her back from her thoughts. She remembers all the knowledge from her past life's letters. With this knowledge, she realizes she knows the future. Folks, she turns to Lana, filled with new resolve. Yeah, with Lana's support, she's ready to act. She resolves to avoid marriage and save her territory. She thoughtfully considers her first move. Lana announces it's time to head for breakfast. Lana reveals the stepmother is overstepping, angering Lisbeth. Lisbeth's anger is palpable, startling Lana. Growl, a loud noise from her stomach, interrupts the moment. Lisbeth giggles shyly at her own rumbling tummy. She eagerly pulls Lana along, insisting she eat breakfast too. Click, the dining room door opens before them. She begins to reflect on the members of the Finland's household. First, she thinks of her father, the family head, Lito Finlands. Then her brothers, Kai and Art, her stepmother Luija, and stepsister Rachel. And finally, she sees a reflection of herself, Lisbeth. Her thoughts turn to her birth mother, Liselott, who died when she was 3. She recalls the painful memory of her mother's funeral. The title of Margrave sounds prestigious, but the reality is far from it. In the kingdom's hierarchy, the king sits at the very top. Below royalty are the high-ranking dukes and margraves. The margrave is the second highest noble rank, just below a duke. Glance. But in truth, their family is nothing more than an impoverished margravate. Her grandfather, once a hero for slaying a dragon, fell from political favor. The family was ostracized by the rest of the court. The memory of their family's harsh history makes her nervous. Their downfall was orchestrated by a vengeful minister of finance. Her father, who only ever loved her mother, was pressured into remarrying. She arrives at the dining hall and offers a firm good morning. Across the table, her stepmother and stepsister are already eating. They immediately mock her, with Luija calling her late and Rachel calling her a slowpoke. HMPH, she scoffs internally, refusing to let them get to her. She remembers how Luija Finlands arrived from the capital after her mother's death. Her insufferable daughter, Rachel, became Lisbeth's stepsister. She strengthens her resolve, determined not to let them bother her. Clink, clack, Lana calmly serves her breakfast. With newfound enthusiasm, she happily declares, "Let's eat." She takes a bite of soup as her stepmother watches her carefully. A flicker of determination shines in her eye. Luija complains the food is subpar, while Rachel whines for sweets. Their constant complaining about the simple food is irritating. She looks down at her own modest meal. The only thing she appreciated about her past life was the delicious palace food. However, her perspective has changed dramatically. She reaches into a basket and picks up a simple loaf of bread. To her, the fresh, warm bread looks like a priceless treasure. She remembers the last loaf she ate in prison was covered in mold. This simple meal is infinitely better than anything she had in jail. She takes a large, satisfying bite of the fresh bread. She has a sudden realization. Lana's stomach was growling too. Lana stands patiently nearby, a gentle smile on her face. Whispers. She quietly offers a piece of her bread to her hungry maid. Sparkle Lana's eyes light up with pure, unadulterated joy. The stepmother's sharp voice cuts in. Oh? Luija's expression turns cold and menacing. Dirk Lisbeth is suddenly and violently yanked away from Lana. A terrifying glare from her stepmother freezes them in place. Eek! Lana quickly lies, insisting she's already eaten, as Lisbeth calls out her name in concern. She internally fumes, thinking of how hard Lana and the few servants work. She knows Lana hasn't even had a single bite to eat today. Undeterred, she reaches for a piece of bread from the basket. As Lisbeth offers the bread to Lana, her stepmother scolds her for giving food to servants. Lana pauses, holding the bread, as Lisbeth stands silently. Her stepmother, Luija, smirks cruelly as she cuts into her own meal, to which Luija glares, angrily asking if Lisbeth dares to talk back to her. Lisbeth announces that she is no longer the weak girl they used to mistreat. She directly accuses her stepmother of ordering Lana to iron instead of eat breakfast. "Am I mistaken?" she asks, staring down her stepmother. Huh? Luija is stunned into disbelief, wondering if she misheard her. She thinks back on how Lisbeth always used to cower in fear before. Lisbeth stands defiantly as a surprised Lana looks on from behind, The tense standoff continues across the long dining table. The stepmother rises from her chair in a rage, calling Lisbeth insolent. Lisbeth feigns a look of wide-eyed surprise at the outburst. Luigia furiously insists chores are a maid's duty, but Lisbeth calmly replies, "Well, that's a very interesting thing to say." Lana watches with wide, concerned eyes from over Lisbeth's shoulder. With teary eyes, Lisbeth asks if her stepmother despises her so much. Lana calls out, "Lady Liz," as the girl pretends to cry. Luigia shouts that she is the lady of this house, with Rachel echoing her, "Yeah, that's right." She reminds Luigia that she was the one who assigned Lana as her personal maid. She recalls how Luigia dismissed Lana's mother when she became the new Margravine. Clenched Lana grips the bread tightly, moved by Lisbeth's words. Lisbeth coldly warns her stepmother to stop acting like she's still in her old family home. Lisbeth calmly interrupts, reminding her that they have guests arriving soon. Fuming, Luigia and a pouting Rachel glare at her. Slam Luigia orders her to water the gardens before storming out with Rachel. Lisbeth turns away with a triumphant, knowing look. "What a relief," she says, happily encouraging a tearful Lana to finally eat. Lisbeth announces she is here to water the garden as instructed, but looking at the few sprouts, she knows this won't be enough to feed everyone. Ding! Light bulb appears as an idea strikes her. She decides to try the special fertilizer she learned about through her letters. She visualizes the bags of fertilizer she plans to make. Shay recalls how her correspondences gave her so much useful knowledge. She begins to work the soil with a small trowel. The knowledge of how to make fertilizer comes back to her. Scattered with Lana watching, she gathers fallen leaves to start the process. Sashay waters the newly prepared garden bed. Wiping her brow, she looks proudly at her hard work. And done, she declares, stretching happily. A moment later, she wonders where Lana has gone. She realizes Lana is already busy washing the morning's dishes. She laments that doing the laundry by herself is too much for one person. Walking with Lana, she asks about the family's serious financial troubles. She realizes there are far too few servants for the estate. She worries this will cause her father to be ridiculed. Mutters she continues to contemplate their precarious situation. From a window, she watches the small number of staff outside. Dun-dun, a dreadful thought suddenly strikes her. She panics, realizing they'll cut servants and marry her off for the mines. Clenching, she steels her resolve, determined to change their fate. She vows to use her knowledge to rapidly develop the land. Holding a watering can, she stands before a confused Lana. Her expression is filled with quiet determination. All of it adds up to an impossibly enormous sum. She wonders why the kingdom isn't providing a proper budget. Her thoughts flash to Rachel admiring a lavish hair ornament. She recalls Luigia happily agreeing to buy the expensive item. A merchant then upsells them, suggesting a matching dress. What? She remembers being shocked, as a dress like that is for a capital ball. She furiously realizes Luigia and Rachel's reckless spending is the cause. The merchant departs from the manor with his briefcase. He reflects on a successful day of business, preparing to head back. A brightly smiling Lisbeth appears, ready to intercept him. The scene shifts as she puts her plan into motion. She politely greets the merchant, who asks how he can help her. She gives him a charming and mischievous smile. He looks back at her completely confused. Luigia looks on dismissively, calling the items merely passable. She furiously complains about being stuck in the backwater territory. Her anger focuses on Lisbeth having dared to talk back to her. Back in the present, the merchant can't believe the rumor and asks Lisbeth why she's here. She explains she's never left and wants to hear about the capital. "I see," he says, seemingly accepting her innocent explanation. He thinks to himself that he was on guard because of the rumor. He explains the current trend among noble ladies is poetry gifting. He describes how they write poems on cards and gift them. Poems written by admired ladies can even fetch high prices. I knew it, she thinks, her plan falling into place. She presents him with 2 beautifully written cards. He's completely stunned by the masterful handwriting. Admiring the penmanship, he doubts she could have written it herself. He concludes an adult must have written it for her. She suddenly begins drawing a pattern in the dirt with a stick. The merchant stares, utterly baffled, and asks what game she's playing. She enthusiastically pats down the dirt with her stick. The merchant looks down at her with a puzzled expression. Astounded, he praises Lady Lisbeth's hidden talent for calligraphy. Clatter, She drops her stick after explaining she practices her handwriting often. The merchant continues to marvel at the beautiful script in the dirt. Impressed, he hands her a shiny gold coin for her work. Lana asks where the money came from, and Lisbeth explains she sold bookmarks with her poetry on them. Wow! Lana is completely astonished by her lady's secret skill. The scene highlights a beautiful, ornate savings box. Lana eagerly offers to help in any way she can. Lisbeth reflects that she now has a grasp on the situation at home. Looking out the window, she calls down to Lana below. The scene shifts to a bright and bustling town square. Whoa! The sounds of chatter fill the air as someone marvels at the sight. A fond thought bubble expresses a feeling of nostalgia. FWIP Lisbeth happily shows off her new outfit as Lana looks on. She recalls how she used to visit the town often as a child. She now understands she just wanted to escape her stepmother and Rachel. This time, she vows, she won't let them have their way. Her eyes narrow with newfound determination. With a crowd of imaginary supporters behind her, she declares, "Let's do this." She remembers the territory's dire state with its injured soldiers and poor families, before a local woman warmly greets her and Lana. With a quick glance, she realizes something must be done to improve things. She is surprised to see a red-haired man in a cape stagger, noticing he's limping. She wonders if the stranger holding a piece of paper is an adventurer. Tachi runs up to the red-haired man, asking if she can help him. He explains that he's lost and asks for directions to the magic tower. After pointing the way, she eagerly asks if he's a new adventurer. She immediately realizes she got a bit carried away. The red-haired man simply laughs at her enthusiasm. He says he's glad she could help, and she thanks him. Limshi watches him walk away, thinking with concern that she hopes he'll be okay. She racks her brain, feeling like she's seen him somewhere in her previous life. Lady Lisbeth. She is startled as two children suddenly tackle her in a joyful hug. A boy and a girl, her attackers, exclaim in delight. She remembers that they all used to play together as kids. Her eyes well up with happy tears at the reunion. She beams, overjoyed to see her childhood friends again. Her friends laugh, teasingly calling her silly Lady Lisbeth. The boy whispers an invitation to go rabbit hunting, and an excited Lisbeth eagerly agrees. Lana smiles, giving her permission as long as she returns by dinner. Lisbeth triumphantly declares they'll make tonight's dinner a feast. Outside the town of Finns, only weak monsters roam the peaceful fields. Splat. Her friend easily smashes a small slime monster with a stick. He calmly identifies the creature as a Damari. Drip. A system window confirms the Damari is a weak monster with low attack power. The boy calls back to Lisbeth and Lana, telling them not to fall behind. The other girls wave happily, urging them to hurry up. With a determined smile, Lisbeth gets ready to hunt some rabbits. She recalls that bows are the standard for hunting, but knows a better way. Her friend boasts about having plenty of arrows, while another girl cheers. Yum. Lisbeth smiles, asking her friends if she can try an idea she has. She asks for a rope, leaving her two friends completely confused. The boy pulls out a rope, and Lisbeth asks to borrow it. Holding the rope, she excitedly declares her plan to build a trap, shocking him. A simple but effective snare is set in the quiet forest. She explains how the trap ensnares a rabbit, tightening as it struggles, and how using stones can guide them into it. Ta-da! She proudly shows off her completed trap to an amazed friend. Her friends remain skeptical, wondering if her trap can actually catch a rabbit. Lisbeth decides they'll gather herbs while they wait for the trap to work. One of her friends rushes off to find herbs, determined to keep up. Lisbeth rallies Lana, making the herb gathering into a friendly competition. A primer on healing explains the three methods: magic, potions, and herbs. Potent potions and natural medicinal herbs, healing magic is revealed to be a rare inherited art mostly used by nobles. Because they require magic, healing potions are an expensive luxury. Commoners, therefore, rely on traditional herbal medicine for their healing needs. Lisbeth contemplates this information with a thoughtful, silent gaze. She knows that at present, cultivating medicinal herbs is believed to be impossible, but she remembers that in 10 years, a cultivation method will be discovered. She resolves to cultivate herbs now to help both the townspeople and soldiers. A young girl with pigtails waves happily from a lush, grassy field. A beautiful blue herb is discovered, prompting a cry of, "Wow, amazing." Lana and the boy congratulate the girl, Rosa, for finding a great supply. With their baskets full, it's officially announced that it's break time. The children run off to play, leaving their gathering gear behind. Shafren gently places a handmade flower crown on Lisbeth's head. The others gather around, admiring how cute the flower crown looks on her. Lisbeth thanks her friend, who is glad she likes the gift. The boy picks up a stick, thinking that girls enjoy such things. She swings the stick like a sword, preferring it to making flower crowns. As a friend praises his knightly aspirations, a monstrous wolf with glowing red eyes appears, and Lisbeth's eyes widen in horror. The beast lunges for the boy, Ter, as a female voice calls out his name. Terran screams in terror as his friend Meryl draws a bow, but her hands tremble. Slam! The wolf pins Ter, who desperately screams for help. Lisbeth cries out Meryl's name, demanding she hand over the bow immediately. She takes an arrow, confidently asserting that she knows how to use a bow. A flashback reveals she once practiced archery with an instructor. Recalling her past life skill, she draws the trembling bow, and FWIP lets an arrow fly. As the arrow hits its mark, and the wolf yelps in pain, "Yep," whimpering, the injured wolf turns and flees into the forest. Meryl rushes to a shaken Ter, who confirms he's okay. Lisbeth sags with relief, thankful the danger has passed. A grateful Lana thanks her, and Lisbeth suggests they check the traps before leaving. As the sun sets, they make their way back through the woods. Done! Ta-da! Lana excitedly exclaims that they've successfully caught some rabbits. Yay, the whole group erupts in cheers, excited for a roast rabbit feast. With arms crossed, Lisbeth proudly declares, "We did it." But her thoughts turn serious, wondering why a dangerous monster was in a safe area. She resolves to use her past knowledge to cultivate herbs immediately. Seeing her lost in thought, Lana asks if something is on her mind. Lisbeth brightly assures her she was just thinking about a brighter future. The scene shifts back to the front of a grand manor. Ta-da! A heaping bowl of freshly gathered herbs is presented. A sleepy Lisbeth identifies the bowl as all the herbs she gathered yesterday. She picks up a sprig, declaring this is only the beginning. She vows to cultivate the herbs for the good of the territory. With fiery determination, she holds up an herb, ready to begin her project. Snap! The herb stem breaks in her forceful grip. She realizes with a sweat drop that she can't plant a broken herb. Her eyes gleam with focus, undeterred by the minor setback. The scene shifts to the imposing magic tower, a center for magical research. Lana looks on from the side with a slightly concerned expression. Lisbeth and Lana walk toward the entrance of the massive building. Lana admits she's never seen the place before. Surrounded by the chatter of the crowd, Lisbeth finds it nerve-wracking. The bustling interior is filled with soldiers and adventurers. A bored man at a counter notices the two girls entering. The man yawns, complaining to himself about the day's broke customers. A trembling Lisbeth nervously approaches the counter to get his attention. He condescendingly tells the little kids to go home. Stunned by his rudeness, she wonders if she came to the wrong place. As he shoos them away, a purple-haired woman with glasses appears. Wham! A hand slaps the rude man as someone calls out Lisbeth's name. The force of the slap reverberates across his face. The woman's voice offers a deep apology for his rudeness. Holding the clerk's face, she cheerfully asks Lady Lisbeth what she needs. The clerk is stunned, finally realizing she's the Lord's daughter. A close-up shows the woman's hand crackling with magical energy. Surrounded by a serpent and dark power, she vows to handle the situation. Doom! As she stands over them, Lisbeth thinks in awe about how strong Melissa is. Melissa, a familiar receptionist, apologizes for the clerk's behavior and any discomfort. Melissa asks how she can help, as Lana notes it's Lisbeth's first visit. Lisbeth excitedly asks if she can purchase magic cores on a regular basis. Of course, Melissa happily agrees, asking if she needs a specific color. She reaches for a red box on a high shelf. An explanation describes how magic cores are harvested from monsters' hearts. The box opens to reveal a stunning collection of colorful magic cores. Lisbeth decides the lowest tier gray magic cores will suffice for her herbs. She places her order, requesting 30 cores for now. A heavy sack of gray magic cores is placed before her. Melissa assures her that they have plenty of gray cores in stock. Lisbeth promises she may return soon as Melissa wishes them a good day. Clutching the sack, Lisbeth considers the next item on her list. Her thoughts turn to the most crucial ingredient: soil. She specifically needs to collect soil from a magically potent location. She recalls her past self's frustration versus her current excitement. Unfortunately, she admits she has magical aptitude but lacks any skill. A pink-haired girl gently offers her hands to a butterfly. A brilliant idea suddenly strikes Lisbeth. Ah, her eyes widen with a flash of insight. She cheers, filled with newfound determination. Lana asks in surprise if she wants to collect soil, and Lisbeth promises to explain later. An eager Melissa asks if there's anything else she can help with today. Delighted, Lisbeth calls out Melissa's name, asking if she truly means it. Melissa understands that Lisbeth needs an escort for her collecting trip. She presents a fee schedule for escort services, revealing incredibly high prices. Both Lisbeth and Lana are utterly shocked by the cost. Sniffle Lisbeth realizes she can't afford a guard, lamenting how expensive it is. With only 7,000 delty, she knows her absent father can't help, and her stepmother would refuse. She nervously admits to a smiling Melissa that she doesn't have enough money. Melissa explains the high fees are due to the monsters, which Lisbeth understands. Someone's boots step forward with purpose. Lisbeth whirls around, startled by the sudden presence. The red-haired man from before approaches her with a smile. He looks at her and confidently volunteers for the job. He introduces himself with a charming smile. "My name's Leo." Lisbeth introduces herself as Liz, and he happily returns the greeting. Thumpelo proudly offers to be her bodyguard to repay her for her help yesterday. She accepts his kind offer, but remembers his limp and silently worries about his well-being. Shrugging man in a uniform scoffs at the scene. The man mocks the idea of a newbie guarding Lady Lisbeth, and she groans in annoyance. Melissa defends Leo's record as an adventurer, but the man, Mr. Hebe, approaches them. Grab. Hebe aggressively grabs Leo's collar, shouting that a scrawny kid can't be a bodyguard. Hebe looks away with a scheming expression. He plots to use this to improve his standing, winking and asking Melissa to report his exploits. Leo's expression hardens as he considers the challenge to prove himself. Whoosh! With a swift motion, Leo grasps Hebe's arm and flips him. Thump! He effortlessly slams the stunned man onto the floor. The room is stunned into silence as Hebe's hand trembles in defeat. Whoa, Melissa sighs in exasperation, muttering that she tried to warn him. As Leo turns away to applause, a memory surfaces of him as a knight. Gasp! A sudden memory strikes Lisbeth. Tupshi quickly grabs Leo's gloved hand, calling his name. She looks at him with wide eyes, exclaiming, "Leo, I remember now." A flashback reveals that Leo was once a knight to Lady Sophiana. Lady Sophiana was a prince's wife, but he cruelly neglected her for another woman. A blood-curdling scream cuts through the memory as the reason for his neglect is revealed. A jealous concubine had burned Sophiana's face, scarring her horribly. Once praised for her beauty, she became known for her hideous scars. Through her suffering, the one person who remained loyal was Leo. Her memory flashes to Leo heroically fighting a ferocious dragon. He became a legendary commoner who rose to the rank of Holy Knight. But a critical wound from a later battle left him unable to wield a sword. Back in the present, Lisbeth is awestruck to have such a famous knight as her bodyguard. A confused Leo asks if she needs a specific type of soil. She explains she needs magically infused soil from far outside of town. He offers to help collect it, and as she thanks him, she notices he's no longer limping. She brushes off her concern, assuming his limp must have been from a minor injury. Carrying a heavy sack, Lana walks through town with a worried expression. Lisbeth reassures a concerned Lana by reminding her how strong Leo is. They wave a cheerful goodbye to Leo as he parts ways with them. Rustle. As they venture into the forest, a loud screech echoes through the trees. Chuck! A monstrous, giant ant with glowing red eyes lunges at Leo. Lisbeth looks on, thinking he's amazing and truly worthy of becoming Lady Sophiana's knight. Shanki coolly sheathes his sword, dismissing his impressive feat as nothing. Having dispatched the monster, he leads her toward the entrance of a dark cave. Wow! Inside, they are both stunned by the sight of a magnificent, glowing cavern. She marvels at the beautiful, sparkling crystals that illuminate the entire cave. Leo looks around the dazzling cave and asks if this magical soil is all they need. She joyfully gathers the soil, relieved that this method is far cheaper than hiring a mage. An illustration visualizes the exorbitant labor and magic recovery costs she successfully avoided. Leo asks if she has enough, and she confirms it's perfect, ready to head back. A sudden attack flashes past Lisbeth's face, startling her. Crackle! Massive claw marks appear in the air as a new monster's eyes glow in the darkness. Monstrous forest bear emerges as Leo shouts Lisbeth's name in warning. Roar! Leo bravely stands between Lisbeth and the furious, roaring beast. He confidently states he can handle it, but his leg suddenly buckles beneath him. His old injury flares up at the worst possible moment, and he curses in frustration. Unseen by the others, strange magical runes suddenly materialize in the air. Leo grabs Lisbeth, pulling her away from an explosion as he insists they have to escape. Run! At his command, they desperately flee from the chaos. They finally make it out of the cave, panting with exhaustion. Lisbeth breathes a sigh of relief as a guilty Leo apologizes for failing his duty as her guard. She insists it's fine, more worried about his injuries, and urges him to come to her house. Realizing where they've arrived, Leo stares in utter shock, completely dumbfounded. Dun. He stands before the massive and imposing Finland's family manor. He nervously wonders if she could just be a servant's daughter living on the estate. Lana runs out to greet them. At a smaller building, cheerfully welcoming Lady Lisbeth home. The Lady Liz title finally clicks, and Leo realizes in shock that Lana has been calling her that the entire time. The unbelievable truth crashes down on him. She's the Lord's daughter. He panics, apologizing profusely for having spoken to her so casually without knowing her status. She cheerfully waves it off, telling him with a bright smile that it's perfectly fine. She invites him into the drawing room to treat his injuries, and he's moved by her kindness. All done, his injured arm is now clean and securely bandaged. Sitting in the drawing room, Leo thanks Lana as she sets down the first aid kit. A quiet moment passes between them as Elizabeth sips her tea. It was a true miracle that they managed to escape the forest bear, the ruler of the woods. Sip. She takes a drink, thinking it was a close call, but praising him as someone worthy of being Lady Sophiana's knight. Graspy clenches his bandaged arm, frustrated that he failed to protect her despite calling himself her bodyguard. No way. She frantically waves her hands, insisting she didn't get a single scratch. Ha, he sighs in relief, while she thinks about how strong he is and how famous he will become. She watches him, determined to find a way to bring such a talented future knight to her side. The scene shifts to the expansive rear garden of the Finland's estate. Now then, Lisbeth, Lana, and Leo stand ready to begin the next phase of her plan. Eager to repay her for treating his injuries, Leo joins Lana in offering to help. The first step of her plan is to bury the newly acquired magic cores at regular intervals in the soil. She thoughtfully recalls that other researchers, including the brilliant Lady Sophiana, had already tried this much. Lisbeth sighs, lamenting the mockery of hardworking servants. What? An angry voice demands to know what nonsense she's saying. A furious, dark-haired girl yells, telling her to be a servant forever. HMPH. The girl turns and stomps away as Lisbeth watches with disapproval. Lisbeth recalls her strained relationship with this girl, Rachel. She remembers Rachel was the daughter of her father's second wife, and with her own mother gone, she was powerless against her. In her past life, she was always neglected, while Rachel received lavish treatment. A crown of thorns represents her suffering, while Rachel received special treatment. Lisbeth smiles, realizing Rachel never expected her to fight back this time. She turns, surprised to find someone familiar behind her. The red-haired man cheerfully greets her, asking what she needs today. Her thoughts turn to her task, swapping the items she's currently using. The man worries, recalling he'd told her that those herbs can't be cultivated. He praises Lady Liz's dedication, and she excitedly asks if he wants to see them. He looks surprised by her offer, asking if she's sure. With a proud and confident grin, she stands with her hands on her hips. Tugshi eagerly grabs his cloak, pulling him along with her. She quietly explains she still needs her father's approval for something. He smiles kindly, telling her not to worry about it. Rustle. A field of magically sparkling green herbs comes into view. The man stands utterly frozen in shock before the thriving plants. He stares in disbelief, exclaiming that the herbs are actually growing. She celebrates her success while he panics, realizing it's on another level. His eyes widen in a moment of pure, unadulterated shock. He asks if anyone else knows, and she confirms only she and Lana do. He thinks to himself that this discovery must be kept secret. He turns to her with a serious expression, advising her to discuss this with her father. She listens with a determined look as he asks if she understands. She resolves to wait for the right moment to tell her father and let him decide if it can become a business. In her apron, she thinks to herself how truly kind Leo is. Leo signals Lana for silence as Lisbeth realizes he's protecting them. Holding a basket of magic cores, she declares the preparations complete. Twitch! As Lana invites him inside, Leo becomes extremely nervous upon realizing he is at the Lord's estate. She quickly calls out for them to wait a second. She decides she should harvest a few more of the fresh herbs. SHFA tray of freshly cut, sparkling herbs is presented. As they leave the garden at dusk, an unseen person answers a call. An unknown observer looks upon the garden in utter confusion. Rachel stands alone in the fading light, staring down at the ground. She scoffs, thinking they should be planting filling crops instead of useless weeds. A shadowy figure agrees that what they really need is food. A maid covers her mouth, snickering at Lisbeth's foolish project. She mocks Lisbeth from afar, wondering how she can be so simple-minded. Stomp! Rachel furiously stomps her foot, shouting for her mother. She continues stomping, enraged that her mother married a backwater lord. Stomp. She angrily declares that you should be more grateful. The maid's expression darkens as she agrees with Rachel completely. The maid declares the estate unworthy of them, and Rachel eagerly agrees that they're the only ones who understand her. She turns to the maid, Ellie, and slyly asks if she knows what she wants. Ellie smiles sinisterly, agreeing to her lady's request. She ominously promises, as you wish. The scene shifts to a single sparkling herb in a vase. The next morning, Lisbeth is relieved to see the herb is still perfectly fresh. She realizes this means the herbs can be transported to other towns or battlefields. Drip! She gently touches a leaf, feeling its vibrant life. She points at the plant with a proud, beaming smile. Looking out at the town, she thinks about the importance of sanatoriums for commoners. She clenches her fist, determined to improve the sanatoriums with her herbs. She and Lana arrive at a building, calling out a cheerful, "Morning!" A blonde woman in a nurse's uniform happily greets Lady Liz and Lana. Lisbeth recalls often coming to help out at this place with Lana as a child. She offers a gift for everyone to share. The woman is delighted, accepting a basket of fruit for the children. Lisbeth and Lana eagerly offer to help with the chores. Squeak. Lisbeth starts by diligently cleaning a window. PFF. Elsewhere, a feather duster sends dust flying from a shelf. Sneak. Lisbeth quietly peeks into the sanatorium's storage room. She confirms her suspicions as she stares at the empty medicine shelves. She's appalled that they're completely out of medicine, unable to function properly. Keg. Suddenly, she hears the sound of someone coughing painfully. Peek. She peeks around a corner to see where the sound is coming from. Keg. She finds a young child suffering terribly in bed with a high fever. Lisbeth asks the nurse if the boy is going to be all right. The nurse explains with a worried look that his persistent fever won't go down. Lisbeth wonders if her herbs, which have fever-reducing properties, could help. Creak. Having made up her mind, she decisively opens a door. TK. She runs down the hallway, urgently calling for Lana. A surprised Lana turns from her sweeping, asking what's wrong. Lisbeth declares she's going home to get some of her herbs. FWSH. As they rush out of the sanatorium, they are abruptly stopped. Oh my, big sister, it's Rachel, dressed in a lavish new purple gown. She proudly shows off her dress while Lisbeth gives a half-hearted compliment. HMPH Rachel pouts, demanding to know where Lisbeth went. Lisbeth calmly tells her she was at the sanatorium. What? Rachel reacts with exaggerated, loud shock. She laughs mockingly, calling it a third-rate treatment center for the poor. Arg Lisbeth retorts that it's a great facility and that they should support it. FWSH. Rachel turns away, sneering about her sister frequenting such a filthy place. A brief, dark image shows Rachel smirking over ruined, trampled herbs. Lisbeth tells Lana they don't have time to deal with Rachel and need to hurry. They quickly continue on their way to the garden. As she arrives, her cheerful expression freezes, her eyes widening in horror. They stand frozen before the sight of her garden, completely destroyed and trampled. A shocked Lana says it's terrible, as Lisbeth desperately wonders who did it. The camera pans down over the muddy, ruined plants. A new voice asks Lana if she's back already. A young boy in overalls named Tad stands there as Lana begins to cry. Lana frantically grabs Tad, asking if he knows who destroyed the garden. Shh! The sound of steam rises from a wooden container. Lisbeth inspects a fresh herb, recalling they must be heat-treated for use, usually brewed into a tea. The traditional method involves applying boiled herbs to wounds, but this process weakens their medicinal properties. To maximize their potency, she has a better idea, believing her experiment is ready. She discovers that steaming the herbs prevents their healing properties from dissolving into the water. The result is a magically potent herb that remains highly effective. Her father calls out for Lady Lisbeth, asking for her help with a crowd of people. She happily runs towards the crowd, eagerly responding, "Yes, I'm coming." Watching her, her father is inspired by her drive, thinking he can't fall behind either. He gives a proud, gentle smile as he watches his daughter at work. He decides it's time for him to head home and get some work done. As night falls, the villagers call out, wishing him well on his way. Lisbeth and Lana wave goodbye, promising to see everyone again tomorrow. Tip-tap walking home, Lisbeth worries about the territory's many problems, including the sanatorium's lack of medicine and staff. Another dire problem plagues the people: malnutrition. She recalls how some people struggle to walk, not from sickness, but from weakness. Future knowledge reveals these symptoms are caused by simple nutrient deficiencies. She feels ashamed that as the ruling family, they've failed to provide even proper meals for their people. Just as she resolves to find a way to heal them, her father's voice calls her name, Liz. She looks up, her expression filled with shock. Seeing her father standing there with a kind smile, she joyfully calls out to him. A painful memory surfaces in her past life. She never got to see her father before she died. She remembers how much worry she must have caused him. The memory of him working tirelessly transitions into a beautiful, starlit garden. She runs into his arms, thinking she couldn't be happier for this second chance to be with him. She buries her face in his chest, hugging him tightly. He holds her close, looking down at her with love and relief. Overcome with emotion, she laughs through her tears of joy. He's moved, thinking about how much she missed him after only a few days away. Kneeling down, he embraces her fully and whispers, "I'm home, Liz. Droop." At dinner, Lisbeth slumps in her seat, disappointed that the celebratory feast for her father's return never happened. Instead, it ended up being just a simple meal. She observes the sparse, nutritionally unbalanced dinner spread across the long table. She contemplates the lack of meat, just as Rachel mischievously flicks a substance from a vial under the table. Lisbeth thinks to herself that she has an idea to solve the food problem. Rachel excitedly shows off a new necklace, announcing that her father bought it for her. She eagerly asks, "Isn't it pretty?" A close-up reveals the lavish, sparkling floral necklace. As Lisbeth watches, Rachel smugly declares that their father loves her the most. She puts her father on the spot, asking him for confirmation while he looks away nervously. The flustered father stammers, trying to reassure Lisbeth that what Rachel said isn't true. Lisbeth laughs it off, asking her father if he really thinks something so petty would hurt her. She smiles, but inwardly she translates Rachel's taunt as being as vulgar as her mother's way of speaking. Her stepmother's eyes narrow in fury, muttering Lisbeth's name under her breath. She sighs, asking if Lisbeth plans to defy her again, and condescendingly states she has much to learn. She warns Lisbeth to be more like Rachel, or risk being an embarrassment at tea parties. The stepmother suggests Lisbeth study in her room, but a gleeful Rachel objects. Rachel mockingly claims her sister prefers growing plants to studying, shocking Lisbeth. Crack. Zap. Enraged, Lisbeth vows revenge for her ruined garden as a tiger and snake clash in her mind. Seeing the tension, her father gently tells his wife Luigia that it's best not to interfere in the children's quarrels. Luigia coldly begins the meal while Lisbeth offers a cheerful thank you. Pat, pat, a gentle hand caresses her hair in a soft memory. Lisbeth recalls a time when their territory was running low on healing potions. She remembers her father had gone to negotiate with neighboring merchants for supplies. The neighboring land was a peaceful place, unlike their own. Their territory, by contrast, borders a forest teeming with dangerous monsters. She sips her drink, remembering the disastrous result of that negotiation. It had ended in complete and utter failure. The failed deal only worsened their financial situation, leaving her father distraught. An ornate, magical-looking hairdryer is switched on. FSH Lana dries Lisbeth's hair as she sits silently, lost in thought. She resolves to prevent another failure by stabilizing her herb cultivation. Tip-tap, she walks with purpose down the long, empty hall. She arrives at her father's office, intending to ask him to hire Leo. Knock, knock. She lightly raps on the heavy wooden door. Creak! Opening the door, she's surprised to find her father with a guest. She quickly apologizes, not realizing he was in a meeting. A calm voice tells her that it's all right. The man, Kieran, explains that her father was looking forward to seeing her. He gently pats her head, and she beams, happy he's home. Click. Kieran excuses himself, leaving the father and daughter alone. Ta-da! Her father presents a small, beautifully wrapped gift box. Sparkle! She gasps in delight and thanks him for the present. Swish! She's touched that he got her a gift, despite their financial troubles. She clutches the box, her face alight with pure joy. She eagerly asks her father to put the gift on for her. He gently places a beautiful necklace around her neck. Click as he fastens the clasp. She seems momentarily lost in thought. She smiles, admitting she's no longer used to wearing jewelry. He remembers the necklace was originally a gift for her mother, Lieselot. Squeeze. He hugs her tightly, wondering who might do this for her one day. No. The thought of marriage triggers a terrible memory of Prince Reinhard. The two settle down for a quiet talk over tea. Lisbeth formally asks her father to hire Leo as her sword instructor. Ha! He sighs, telling her she's been too reckless in his absence. Clink. She apologizes but downplays the danger, though she knows it was real. He expresses his deep worry for her, making her promise to be careful. Turning to the topic at hand, he asks about this man, Leo. Poof. She enthusiastically vouches for Leo, calling him a very kind person. Her father considers Leo's good reputation as a skilled swordsman. He agrees to hire Leo on a trial basis. To Lisbeth's delight, he smiles, enjoying her happiness as she prepares to say more. He listens intently as she begins to share her big news. Beaming with pride, she announces her success in cultivating medicinal herbs. Gulp. Her father chokes on his tea, completely stunned by her claim. She leads him out into the starlit night to show him the herbs. He stares in disbelief, saying he's never heard of anyone succeeding before. She lets out a proud and happy little giggle. She explains that Lana and Tad replanted the few successful sprouts for her. Looking at the glowing herbs, she silently thanks them for their help. Her father worries that with their herb shortage, her cultivation is their only hope. He feels overwhelmed, knowing such research is usually handled by the kingdom, or the magic tower. He concludes they must first determine the scientific reason for her success. Asked for the reason, a flustered Lisbeth can only stammer. Her father explains that their constant monster battles create a huge demand for healing potions. He looks concerned, admitting the problem is too large for their territory to handle alone. Praising her amazing achievement, he watches as she clenches her fist with determination. Lisbeth silently agrees, worried that another noble will steal the credit for her hard work. Gazing at the garden, she reaffirms her desire to protect her territory. She offers a simple excuse, claiming she just thought it would be nice to plant some herbs. Sparkle. She puts on her most innocent and charming face. Her father seems to accept her simple, childlike reasoning. He agrees to her simple story, asking her to share any discoveries as she smiles sweetly. Tip? He steps closer to the glowing herbs, a new thought occurring to him. He realizes that with this many herbs, they won't need to sign the merchant's contract. He beams with joy, realizing this success will bring them financial relief. Lisbeth is simply content to see her father so happy. She watches him with a warm and gentle smile. As the full moon rises, her father suggests they head inside. Chirp, peep. A new day dawns outside the manor window. Shake. In the kitchen, Lisbeth vigorously shakes a large jar. Peeking inside, she celebrates her successful creation. She proudly presents the magical ingredient for fluffy bread to a shocked Lana and Tad. She fondly recalls the wonderful feeling of eating warm, fluffy bread for the first time. She excitedly holds out the jar of starter to her two nervous helpers. A loaf of perfectly sliced, golden brown bread sits ready to be eaten. Nom! Her father takes his first curious bite. He's utterly amazed, declaring it's the most delicious bread he's ever had. Even Luigi and a delighted Rachel agree they've never tasted anything like it. Lisbeth enjoys their reaction before her father asks if she made it. Crackle! Rachel is stunned by the revelation that her sister made the bread. Her father marvels at her recent string of successes as Rachel fumes in the background. Luigi smirks darkly, thinking that Lisbeth is once again causing trouble. Rachel glares at her bread, her appetite ruined by jealousy as Luigi seethes. Luigi silently rages, furious that Lisbeth made her precious Rachel look bad. In his study, Kieran reflects on his surprise at hearing about the herbs. He admits the bread is just as astonishing, while Lisbeth's father proudly boasts about her accomplishment. As her father gushes about her potential cooking talent, Kieran dryly notes his doting nature. Kieran interrupts, warning that praising Lisbeth's achievements so openly could attract danger. He advises caution, as the method for cultivating the herbs remains a mystery. He suggests consulting the magic tower before reporting to the kingdom. Her father looks out at the garden, lamenting his poor relationship with the capital's nobles. As her father worries about others taking credit, Kieran stresses the need for an alliance with the magic tower and his concern for Lisbeth's safety. Kieran warns that if word spreads, she could become a target for those seeking her secrets. The father grows pale, imagining people trying to kidnap or harm his daughter out of resentment. Kieran points out the need for a bodyguard, but notes the difficulty since even Rachel doesn't have one. The father sighs in frustration, knowing Luigi would never allow it without a solid reason. A sudden idea strikes him. He proposes a plan. They'll make Liz the sanatorium's chief administrator to justify assigning her a guard. Kieran notes that while the plan is good, her public activities will force Luigi's hand. Her father's eyes narrow with determination as he considers the plan. Entrusting him with the task, her father relies on Kieran to monitor Luigi and Rachel. Her father suddenly grabs Kieran's arm, his voice trailing off. Surprised by the sudden gesture, Kieran looks at him questioningly. Her father makes one more urgent request: to watch over Lisbeth as much as possible. Kieran bows deeply, accepting the solemn responsibility without hesitation. The scene shifts as an angry thought bubble exclaims, honestly, HMPH. In the damaged garden, Lisbeth fumes over Rachel's destructive tantrum. She clutches a broken plant, lamenting the loss of her precious herbs. She finds a silver lining, realizing Rachel mistook the valuable magic cores for rocks. A somber memory clouds her expression as she looks down. She recalls the constant unkindness she faced, overhearing maids gossip about Prince Reinhardt's neglect. The cruel whispers continue, mocking her countryside origins as the reason for his disdain. Ha ha ha! Her older self overhears the maids laughing callously at her expense. She grimly accepts the painful truth of her past treatment. Clenching her fist, she recalls her demeaning nickname, the Pebble Princess. Stab! 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 Little Lisbeth angrily tills the soil, vowing to never again tolerate such disrespect. Her eyes flash with newfound resolve, a stark contrast to her past self. She smiles, remembering how Prince Liam's letters were her sole source of comfort. Recalling a past attempt to greet a royal, she was cruelly rebuffed for her lower status. A memory of a smirking, blonde-haired man flashes in her mind. She realizes it was Prince Reinhardt who belittled her, confirming he truly looked down on her. She remembers finally meeting Prince Liam through Lady Sophiana, who had praised her diligent studies. His kind words of encouragement, "Let's both do our best," had meant the world to her. She reflects that just the thought of him gave her strength during difficult times. A portrait identifies her kind correspondent as Liam's Saint Harold. He is revealed to be the third prince and Lady Sophiana's younger brother. She calculates his age and imagines the studious prince is always buried in books. A gentle breeze rustles through the leaves on a sunny day. Lisbeth smiles happily, enjoying the beautiful weather in her garden. The scene transitions through a soft focus on flowers. Tip-tip, she walks purposefully down a stone path. Carrying a basket, she happily wonders if Leo will like the bread she brought. She and Lana share a moment of pure, joyful laughter. Chatter. The scene shifts to a crowded hall where Leo stands apart. Good morning. Lisbeth arrives with Lana, greeting a surprised Leo. A beaming Leo welcomes her warmly, asking what brings her to him. She happily presents him with the basket of freshly baked bread. Flustered by her kindness, he insists she didn't have to bring him anything. He inhales the bread scent and happily accepts it for lunch, delighting Lisbeth. She then shares her big news. Her father approved hiring him as a sword instructor. Leo is completely stunned, stammering in disbelief. Really? She explains there will be a trial period, but confidently says he'll be fine. She gives him instructions to find Kieran at the manor to finalize the details. Leo thanks her, promising to visit after an escort mission and noting the recent increase in monsters. His news about the monsters leaves Lisbeth looking momentarily worried. She quickly brightens up, offering Leo a cute and heartfelt good luck for his job. That evening, Lisbeth stands by her balcony, gazing into the sparkling night. Her expression is thoughtful as she stares out into the darkness. She wonders how to move freely, and avoid repeating her past. Her goal is simple: to keep her family smiling. A firm desire forms in her mind. She vows to make her territory prosper. This was the dream she couldn't fulfill in her past life. She knows that providing basics like food and shelter isn't enough. Recalling Leo's warning, she worries about the increasing number of monsters. In the darkness, she imagines a desperate cry for help. She realizes that hiring Leo as a sword instructor is a crucial first step. With a determined look, she plans to improve the soldiers' skills to increase their military strength. Her first priority is reinforcing the defenses of the monster-infested Finland's territory. She thinks of her brothers on the front lines and the monsters that sometimes break through. To protect the city, she concludes they need stronger walls. She recalls a valuable material from her past life: adamantine steel. Rattle. Decided, she plans to inspect the mines herself when things calm down. Flap. She unrolls a large map of the territory, ready to plan her visit. She considers the logistical challenges of a long trip to the mines. She knows her father won't approve of guards, and she lacks the funds to hire her own. Thud. An idea strikes her. Perhaps Leo could also serve as her bodyguard. She remembers a critical detail: the royal family coveted their mines for that very steel. Looking over the mountains, she resolves to go to the mines herself to prevent their seizure. A sudden thought crosses her mind as she remembers a certain person. She looks up from her map, a dreadful realization dawning on her. She remembers that a royal is supposed to be visiting the mines soon. The scene shifts to a grand, illuminated mansion under a starry sky. Thwack! Thwack! The sharp, brutal sounds echo through the halls. As a blonde boy plays piano, a woman viciously beats a cowering maid. Your Highness, a butler stands before the young pianist, addressing him respectfully. The blonde boy glances over, his expression cold and dismissive. Back in the present, a nervous Lana offers to carry the heavy bag for Lady Liz. Lisbeth cheerfully reassures her, saying it's nothing. Rustle. She proudly holds the large sack of medicinal herbs with a bright smile. She reflects that it's been 10 days since they started their deliveries. Sparkle. The sanatorium is now clean, and the shelves are stocked with her herbs. Lisbeth's eyes widen in delight at the transformation. A nurse gratefully tells them the sanatorium is cleaner, and the patients are smiling. Lisbeth says she's just happy that everyone can be healthy. The nurse is glad for the new comfort, praising how helpful the herbs have been. A patient confirms the herbs are incredibly valuable, making wounds heal faster. Lisbeth beams, filled with joy at the positive results. The nurse looks at them with trust, saying she knows they can be depended on. Huff, huff! Later, as she and other children gather more herbs, Lisbeth fumes, blaming Rachel for the ruined garden. She looks ahead, realizing she has to focus on the immediate problem. For now, she knows these herbs can't heal serious injuries. She considers that high-quality herbs are only found in dangerous areas. FWSH. A sudden breeze makes her look up as she senses a presence. A large, menacing man suddenly looms over her. The man demands some of her herbs as a shocked Lisbeth wonders who he is. Gulp. Lisbeth swallows nervously, trapped in the man's intimidating presence. Spotting the intimidating man, Lisbeth kindly offers to take him to the sanatorium for medical care. He scoffs internally, knowing he's uninjured and just wants to steal her herbs. Whoosh. He lunges forward, brandishing a club with a furious expression. As he screams about sharing, a horrified Lisbeth freezes in terror. A voice cries out, "Lady Lisbeth!" as the club swings down toward her. Thwack! Lana bravely throws herself in front of Lisbeth, taking the brutal blow. Alana Lisbeth screams in horror, crying for help as her friend collapses. As she desperately calls for someone to help, onlookers begin to whisper amongst themselves. Chatter. A crowd gathers, drawn by the commotion and recognizing Lady Lisbeth on the ground. The attacker sweats, realizing he's drawing too much unwanted attention. Wish! Panicked, he lunges for the bag of herbs again with a desperate shout. Crackle! A massive bolt of blue lightning strikes down, stopping him in his tracks. Gah! The attacker cries out as the powerful magic courses through his body. Thwump! Crackle! He collapses to the ground, subdued by the electric shock as a man in a black coat approaches. The dark-haired man surveys the scene, his hand crackling with magic as he demands to know what happened. Push, a blonde woman, rushes past, shouting with concern for Lady Liz and Lana. A crying Lisbeth assures her she's fine, but worries about the bleeding and unconscious Lana. The blonde woman urgently tells them to get Lana to the sanatorium for immediate treatment. The scene transitions to the sunlit sanatorium. Someone gently finishes wrapping a clean bandage around Lana's head, noting it's much better. Lisbeth and a bandaged Lana thank the man and the blonde nurse for helping them. Lisbeth looks up gratefully at the tall, dark-haired man who saved them. He looks down at her, commenting that she must be the angel Leto told him about. Yup. A tiny bandaged Lana agrees to Lisbeth's shocked exclamation of her name. Lisbeth laughs it off, claiming she's just doing what she wants, though she knows it's a lie. With a determined smirk, she recognizes this is all groundwork for the future. A voice introduces the man as Master Rudolph, head of the Magic Tower branch. The Magic Tower Lisbeth gasps, her eyes sparkling with shock and excitement. She realizes that by meeting Leo and now Rudolph, her actions are already changing her fate from her past life. Stare. Rudolph continues to watch her intently. He expresses his disbelief that such a little girl could transform the rundown sanatorium. He then sternly warns her that carrying valuable herbs makes her an easy target for thieves. A chastened Lisbeth apologizes, looking downcast. She reflects on her vulnerability, realizing she's just a tiny 7-year-old girl. It pains her to think that Lana was put in danger because of her choices. As Rudolph offers tea, the nurse quickly insists on making it, saying it's no trouble at all. Lisbeth calls out to the seated and bandaged Lana. She apologizes sincerely, admitting she should have realized the herbs would make them a target. Lana smiles brightly, rejecting the apology and vowing to get stronger to prevent it from happening again. Lisbeth's eyes widen, touched by Lana's unwavering spirit. A profound sadness crosses her face as she resolves to change her own mindset. As Rudolph watches, Lisbeth sees this unexpected encounter as a great opportunity. She gazes at the distant magic tower, determined to secure its cooperation for the sanatorium. The scene shifts to the majestic magic tower against a bright blue sky. It is a neutral organization for mages, located on a large floating island. On the surrounding islands, rare sun and moon herbs grow. These herbs, combined with magic, can create powerful healing potions. Lisbeth thoughtfully considers her new goal, getting the local Magic Tower branch on her side. She watches Rudolph with the nurse, pondering how she should approach him. She recalls that in her past life, the mages only provided support on the front lines, never helping with facilities like the sanatorium. Lisbeth's green eyes sparkle with newfound determination. A pink-haired man looks surprised, questioning her sudden studies. He wonders if she's been reading books, as Lisbeth explains their kingdom has fewer mines than others. She points out that the snowy kingdom of Linzerte has the most. Her father asks how she knows, but she laughs nervously, unable to reveal her secret correspondences. She declares that as his daughter, she wants to help the territory by reactivating their dormant mine. Inspired, her father makes a decision. He's putting Lisbeth in charge of the mine. The dark-haired man is utterly shocked, stammering, "Put her in charge." Her father clarifies he's not expecting the impossible, explaining they'll start operations once they have the manpower. Lisbeth's two main jobs will be monitoring the mine and acting as a liaison with the Magic Tower. The pink-haired man smiles, confident that these responsibilities are manageable for her. He reminds the other man that the Magic Tower branch needs ore for its own fortifications. He asks Rudolph to give Liz a list of needed materials, but Rudolph is pensive, knowing he must maintain good relations with local lords. Rudolph wonders about this little girl who cultivated herbs and decides he needs to learn more about her. He turns to Lisbeth's father, Leto, expressing his concern about the arrangement. He warns that mines are far more dangerous than Leto seems to realize. Leto calmly insists that Lisbeth won't be going to the mine herself. Rudolph challenges this, asking who will verify reports if not her, the liaison. Struck by the valid point, Leto falls silent. Lisbeth watches them, her expression filled with resolve. Crackle. Deciding to test her, Rudolph unleashes a surge of powerful blue magic. Boom. Lisbeth and her father are caught in the sudden, intense magical pressure. Rudolph calmly walks across the grand library. Lisbeth watches him approach a large mirror, asking what it is. He places his hand on the mirror, activating it with swirling purple energy. Boom. The mirror becomes a glowing portal, and he reaches his arm inside. Rummage. He searches for something within the portal as Lisbeth and her father watch, baffled. Food. A moment later, he pulls his hand back out of the magical vortex. Tup! He presents a large, intricately decorated egg to a surprised Lisbeth. She stares at it, thinking she's never read about anything like it. Rudolph explains it's an augury egg, a creature drawn to ore, and will be useful for her work at the mine. He offers her a deal. If she can hatch it, he will grant her request. An explanation reveals that auguries are typically considered monsters. However, some species, like the one pictured, can be tamed and become helpful companions. Cradling the egg, Lisbeth is amazed, having never heard of an augury attracted to ore before. Rudolph explains that this particular specimen is special, which is why it hasn't hatched. Is it still alive? Lisbeth asks hopefully, and Rudolph confirms that it is. He repeats his challenge with a confident smirk, daring her to hatch it. Leto grabs Rudolph, protesting that if even he couldn't hatch it, the task is too much for Liz. Rudolph glares back, retorting that a man who'd entrust a mine to a child has no room to talk. Plop. Cradling the egg, Lisbeth feels a faint pulse. Bathump. It's alive. She gazes at the egg, wondering what kind of bird is inside. Leaning close, she whispers that she wants to meet it. She asks Rudolph if he was studying the egg at the magic tower, and he confirms it. Lisbeth then asks if he tried using magic to crack it, but he laughs, saying his magic is too powerful and would destroy it. He adds that the eggs are naturally resistant to physical impact. Realizing he hasn't tried magic, Lisbeth cleverly compliments his immense power. She remembers a bedtime story from her mother about an egg that would only hatch in a very cold place. Recalling the story, she imagines a chick hatching and wonders if cold is the answer. Rudolph says he already tried that in the magic tower's coldest cave, leaving Lisbeth stunned. Darn, Rudolph scolds Lisbeth, refusing to give her any hints for his test. She calmly accepts the challenge. With a determined sparkle, Lisbeth vows to prove herself by hatching the egg. Later, a wide-eyed Lana holds the egg, exclaiming how beautiful it is. She identifies it as an augury egg, wondering what will emerge from it. Lisbeth ponders the difficult task ahead of her. She explains her mission to Lana and asks for her help. Lana eagerly agrees, ready to assist. Lisbeth admits she has absolutely no idea how to hatch it. She considers that normal bird eggs hatch with incubation after about 15 days. But she notes this particular egg is already several years old. Lisbeth concludes normal methods won't work, prompting Lana to ask if auguries have unique hatching methods. The known methods are listed: feeding them magic cores, offering herbs, or placing them in the cold. Another method is exposure to magic, with many possibilities. Lisbeth sighs, certain that Rudolph has already tried most of them. She and Lana look on, perplexed. Covering the egg with a blanket, Lana expresses her doubt that it will work. Lisbeth gets a new idea. They should cover the egg with herbs from the garden, and Lana agrees. Tip tip. As they work in the garden, a dark-haired woman in a red dress watches them with a sinister expression. A hand offers a glittering black stone to the ornate egg. Gently, Lisbeth lowers the egg into a basin of water, as her father, Leto, worriedly tells her to stop before her hands get irritated. A voice chastises Lord Leto for showing up without an appointment. Swingban Leto bursts into a room, furiously shouting Rudolph's name. Shove. He confronts Rudolph, demanding to know why he hates Liz so much, but Rudolph is just confused. Leto insists that it's impossible for anyone to hatch that egg. He challenges Rudolph, asking if he really thinks Liz can succeed where he failed, but Rudolph remains silent and stern. Back at home, an exhausted Lisbeth and Lana slump over, frustrated that nothing is working. Lana leans close, gently pleading with Mr. Egg to please hatch already. Lisbeth observes with her arms crossed, still deep in thought. She suddenly remembers reading that some auguries can hatch in response to words or singing. Looking at a book, she tells a surprised Lana they should try talking to it, and Lana agrees. Lana enthusiastically calls out to Mr. Egg, asking if it can hear her. She leans in close, shouting her greeting to the egg. Lisbeth decides to try singing to it instead. As she sings, the egg on the pillow begins to vibrate. The two girls are completely shocked by the sudden reaction. A delighted Lana exclaims that what Lady Liz did was amazing. Realizing singing might be the key, Lisbeth excitedly asks Lana to sing with her. Lana happily agrees as musical notes fill the air. The two of them sing together, hopefully watching the egg. A view from the window shows time passing. Lisbeth notes with disappointment that even after singing several times, the egg still hasn't hatched. Augury, she recalls that they've already tried all the methods her friend Viola told her about. A flashback reveals first Princess Viola of the Holy Kingdom of Linserde, whom she met at an international conference. The memory concludes that they became good friends through their letter correspondence. Wait, Lisbeth is struck by a sudden, powerful realization. Sitting alone, she confirms a thought that just occurred to her. She realizes this is no ordinary augury. A vision of Princess Viola smiling slyly as she writes suggests a hidden clue in her letters. As one voice begs to be left alone, Lisbeth fiercely refuses. A close-up reveals a calm, sparkling blue eye. A blonde maid frantically orders someone to find a place for the woman to rest. Exhausted, the white-haired woman leans on Lisbeth, repeating her plea. Finally, she rests peacefully on a nearby couch. Bow, bow. Lisbeth thanks the maids as they respectfully depart. The scene shifts to a grand party under a starry sky. Music and chatter fill the air outside the brightly lit estate. Lisbeth sighs, watching the festivities from a lonely window. She quietly wonders if Lady Viola is feeling better now. Her blonde maid suggests Viola is surely at the party and encourages Lisbeth to attend. Shake, shake. Lisbeth refuses, recalling His Highness forbade her from appearing. The maid points out that Lady Viola might find her absence strange. Laughing, Lisbeth dismisses the idea, calling Viola a great princess. She believes a princess would never notice a lowly concubine like her. The lively ballroom is filled with elegantly dressed guests. Fwick, F-W-I-C-K. Lady Viola makes her entrance into the bustling party. She looks for Lisbeth Albert, disappointed she isn't there to receive a gift. Ahaha. A loud laugh suddenly breaks through the din, startling Viola. She sees a man on a grand chair, laughing with several women. Guests gossip that he is the philandering crown prince of Albert. Another guest adds that he is known to have a favorite concubine. Oh, Viola realizes that Lisbeth is also a concubine but was absent from introductions. She recalls seeing Lisbeth in the library and questions her priorities during the conference. Mumble. Viola comes to a quiet, judgmental conclusion about Lisbeth. The scene transitions to the grand, silent library. Done. An imposing Lady Viola confronts a nervous Lisbeth among the bookshelves. Viola's sharp question about the party is emphasized by angry cats. Lisbeth realizes her maid's warning about raising suspicion was correct. She explains that as a low-ranking concubine, she doesn't attend such events. Viola acknowledges Prince Reinhardt has many concubines, but before she can scold Lisbeth, Lisbeth quickly changes the subject to Viola's health. Flustered, Viola insists she is fine now. Lisbeth observes her, thinking she seems so different up close. She realizes Viola is nothing like the cold ice queen of rumors. Smiling, Lisbeth says she is simply glad Lady Viola is well. Viola turns away, shyly stating that was all she wanted to say. Clack, clack. She walks away but stumbles with a soft ugh. She looks back, completely baffled by Lisbeth's perplexing kindness. The scene shifts, focusing on the library's quiet, vaulted ceilings. Peek. Lisbeth watches Viola from afar, noting she now sees her in the library daily. Heh. A sly, satisfied smile crosses Lisbeth's face. Whoosh. Viola blushes while reading, aware of their silent, daily encounters. Clench. Her hand tightens around her book in quiet contemplation. An older man with a sinister aura wishes Lady Viola a wonderful day. He thinks back on his failed attempt to win her over with gemstones. From her throne, Viola scoffs, knowing he calls her cold-hearted in private. Lisbeth and Viola sit back to back, reading together in peaceful silence. A rare, gentle smile graces Viola's lips. Lisbeth walks through the sunlit library aisles. As she reaches for a book, a sudden realization strikes her. Droop. Lisbeth despairs, realizing she's read every book on auguries. The sudden cough of Lady Viola startles Lisbeth from her thoughts. Lisbeth worries if Viola is unwell but hesitates, fearing she might overstep. Kitschy! A sharp sound makes Lisbeth flinch in surprise. Startled Lisbeth quickly asks if Lady Viola is all right. Viola gives Lisbeth a stern, unimpressed glare. When Lisbeth asks about the cough, Viola dismisses her concern. Viola then presents Lisbeth with a beautifully wrapped black gift box. She holds out the present with a surprisingly gentle expression. Lisbeth stares at the unexpected gift, completely taken aback. In a mental image, Viola admits people call her the Ice Queen. She explains that very few people approach her with genuine concern. She scoffs at insincere men whose sweet words just make her skin crawl. A rare, genuine smile lights up Viola's face. Startled by the change, Lisbeth realizes how much time has passed. She asks for permission to open the gift, and Viola agrees. Rustle. Lisbeth opens the box and lets out a gasp of wow. Inside is a stunning book she has never seen before. Viola explains she chose the gift after noticing Lisbeth's interest in auguries. She reveals it's her favorite book from home, but she is happy to give it away. Lisbeth's eyes sparkle, moved by the significance of the gift. Overjoyed, she clutches the book and promises to cherish it. A blushing Viola turns to leave, announcing her imminent departure. Wait, Lisbeth calls out, impulsively asking if she can write her letters. Viola turns back, her expression surprised by the request. Lisbeth eagerly says she wants to share her thoughts on the book. A soft, pleased blush appears on Viola's cheeks. Walking away, Viola agrees to write back if she finds the time. Sparkle, Lisbeth beams with gratitude, thanking her profusely. The book's ornate golden cover gleams with intricate designs. Back in the present, she wonders if the book is a fairy tale from Dronzer. Augury's adventure in the mines. She quickly realizes the book tells the story of a legendary augury. Looking from the book to the egg, she names it Aurora. The narrative confirms the name of the legendary augury, Aurora. The book says Aurora loves ore and burns as brightly as the sun. It also reveals the creature can be reborn from flames after death. Lisbeth eyes the egg, forming a risky new plan, placing it in fire. A horrified Lana protests, worrying they'll just cook it. While Lana frets, a determined Lisbeth decides it's worth the risk. Lana fears the egg will die, but Lisbeth trusts its strong recovery abilities. Crackle, they stand before a roaring fire, Lana's heart pounding nervously. FWSH Lana suggests carefully placing the egg in a space between the logs. Lisbeth gently lowers the ornate egg toward the intense flames. Whoosh! The moment the egg touches the logs, the fire erupts magically. Jolt! Lisbeth cries out in pain as an energy surge hits her. Huh? A dazed and confused Lisbeth tries to understand what happened. Ah, Lana screams in terror, pointing at the egg in the fire. Whoosh! The egg suddenly shoots out of the fire and high into the sky. Whom? It explodes in a blinding flash of light, showering them in sparks. Crackle! The fiery explosion sends Lisbeth and Lana reeling in shock. The egg descends gracefully, landing gently back into the flames. Gasp! The two girls watch in renewed shock as the egg rests in the fire. Crackle! Crackle! The egg begins to crack within the intense heat. Crack. A large fissure splits across the egg's shell. Ah! The girls scream, horrified by the sound. Crackle. Her fear turns to wonder as she watches. She suddenly realizes something. Wait. Her eyes widen in dawning comprehension. A confused Lana asks, what's happening? She realizes the fire is the key to breaking the ancient shell. The fire suddenly erupts into a brilliant golden pillar. They cry out, shielding their eyes from the intense light. Peeking through her fingers, she witnesses the spectacle. She stares in awe as the light subsides. From the light emerges a tiny, fluffy golden bird. Lisbeth is utterly captivated by the sight. Flap! Two small birds begin circling her head. Puff! One of the fluffy creatures lands gently on her head. Ta-da! The bird strikes a cute pose on her head. As the bird chirps, a delighted Lana says, wow, while Lisbeth thinks it's adorable. The newborn augury looks incredibly pleased with itself. Lana happily suggests the creature must love music. Lana notes that it sees Lisbeth as its parent, leaving her happily flustered. Rustle. A single soft feather drifts down. Plop! She decides to name the augury song, and Lana wholeheartedly agrees. Creak. A voice from a doorway thanks someone for a report. A dark-haired man leaves as a pink-haired man sees him off. The pink-haired man is surprised to see Mr. Rudolph hasn't left. Tat Lisbeth runs up, happy to see the visitor. The pink-haired man greets Liz, but Rudolph drops his briefcase in shock. Dumbfounded, Rudolph points a shaking finger asking about the creature on her head. She puffs out her chest, proudly showing off her new friend. The pink-haired man calls Liz a genius for hatching the egg, leaving her bewildered. Rudolph groans, thinking the man is a doting fool. Scratch! He looks on in disbelief while Lisbeth just giggles. He asks in disbelief how she hatched it and what magic she used. A brief vision shows a graceful, white-haired woman. Heh. A mischievous smile plays on Lisbeth's lips. She playfully declares her method is a maiden's secret. Tisk. Rudolph sighs, acknowledging she's a handful. Eep. He declares a strategy meeting will begin tomorrow, startling Lisbeth. A confused Lisbeth tilts her head, wondering what he means. Blink. Her eye sparkles as she processes his words. The scene shifts to her room later that night. Stretch, she lets out a big yawn, ready for bed. Nuzzle, the little bird, affectionately snuggles against her. The next morning, she wakes up to the bird's cheerful chirping. Lana enters, brightly wishing her good morning with food for Liedli. Lisbeth returns the greeting, confused by the name Liedli. Lisbeth recoils in horror from a pile of caterpillars, as Lana wonders if they are the right choice for food. She smiles warmly, realizing Lana is simply trying her best to care for Liedli. She recalls reading in her past life that stronger auguries require magic-infused food. Her thoughts turn to images of sparkling, powerful magic crystals. She remembers that feeding them magic cores is particularly effective. Deciding to be polite, she agrees to try feeding the bird the caterpillars first. HMPH, the little bird turns its head away, haughtily refusing the offering. With a knowing look, Lisbeth confirms her suspicion that it wouldn't eat them. Rustle, she moves to her wardrobe as a confused Lana watches from the bed. Roll, a large, glittering magic cord tumbles from a box in her wardrobe. With a sweet smile, she holds out the sparkling magic core. The little bird chirps with delight at the sight of the crystal. Clink, clink, the bird pecks eagerly at the large, uncut gem. Lisbeth and Lana stare, stunned by the bird's ambitious attempt. Clang! A sharp sound rings out from the failed effort. Clang! The sound echoes once more. Now holding a large hammer, Lisbeth prepares to break the core for the bird. The tiny bird glares at the crystal with fiery determination. Clink, clink. Lisbeth hesitates with the hammer while Lana watches anxiously. Clink! In a flash, the bird's beak strikes the crystal with surprising force. Chomp, chomp. The augury happily eats the shattered pieces of the magic core. Lisbeth is stunned, realizing the tiny creature broke the impossibly tough core by itself. A clever, triumphant smile spreads across her face. Burp. Full and satisfied, the little bird lets out a contented burp. The scene transitions as morning light streams through a window. Today's agenda includes a team meeting at 10 a.m., a client presentation at 1 p.m., and individual work time in the afternoon. Lana observes that Lisbeth has been working on many things recently. Lisbeth confirms this, outlining her two main projects, improving the sanatorium and developing the mines. She dreams of a healthy and happy Finland's territory, achieved through her sanatorium improvements. Turning to the mines, she notes that getting Rudolph on their side was a crucial step. With his power, they can finally begin excavating in earnest. Her ultimate goal is to use the ores to reinforce the city walls against monster attacks. She remembers a terrifying past attack, filled with fire and screams. FWSH. Her expression hardens with the grim resolve to never let that happen again. She warmly thanks an encouraging and supportive Lana. She thinks to herself that today marks the first step toward her goal. Excitedly, she declares it's time for her strategy meeting with Rudolph. Her feet take a determined step forward. With the bird on her head, she declares her first stop is the magic tower. Arriving at the tower, she's told that the branch chief is expecting her. FWIP. A woman with glasses gestures for her to enter, but Lisbeth hesitates. With a bright smile, Lisbeth says she has a small request before they begin. She asks the woman to prepare high-quality magic cores while she meets with Rudolph, rejecting the usual gray one. When warned that it will be expensive, Lisbeth insists she doesn't mind the cost. She thinks about her desire to provide for the little one. With a wink, she resolves to give her augury the best food she possibly can. The woman realizes she wants the cores for the newly hatched augury. The woman looks at the tiny creature with an adoring expression. Lana expresses concern about the daily expense of feeding Liedli, but Lisbeth reassures her. Lisbeth happily reveals that her father has agreed to buy herbs from her, securing her funds. Rudolph looks away, flustered and a bit embarrassed. Open, the bird suddenly wakes up, with a curious chirp. Heh. A warm, pleased smile appears on Rudolph's face. Nuzzle. Lisbeth realizes with a smile that Mr. Rudolph also tried his best to hatch Liedli. In exchange for his help, Rudolph asks to do a little research on Liedli, making Lisbeth realize his ulterior motive. Lisbeth defensively warns she won't let him harm the bird, while he protests that he doesn't want to dissect it. The scene highlights the small, elegant augury, Clasp. She quietly agrees to his terms. With the bird on her shoulder, a cheerful Lisbeth makes a point about different magic cores. Rudolph looks momentarily surprised, then agrees that she's right. Lana looks completely lost and confused by their conversation. Fidget, the little bird chirps and flaps its wings on her shoulder. Lana asks if Liedli is thirsty, As the bird pecks at Lisbeth's collar, Lana offers to go get some water for the creature. Holding her little bird, Lisbeth gratefully thanks Lana. The scene transitions to the outside of the Grand Estate. The carriage pulls up to the manor's entrance. The two-horse carriage comes to a stop on the path. Lana identifies the visitor as Merchant Vance, and Lisbeth notes his arrival is unscheduled. Knowing her stepmother and Rachel are out, Lisbeth watches the merchant disembark. The man, Merchant Vance, spots her and excitedly calls out to Lady Lisbeth. Tat, tat. He runs towards her, happily exclaiming that it's been a while. He catches his breath, beaming with delight. Lisbeth smiles playfully, wondering if her bookmark sold for an unexpectedly high price. Finding this warm treatment new, the merchant begins to explain the reason for his visit. Thud, clack. A woman's voice interrupts, asking Vance what he's doing there. Lisbeth's stepmother, with a purple-haired girl named Rachel, questions his presence since they have no meeting. Merchant Vance explains that he actually has a request for Lady Lisbeth. The stepmother stares in disbelief, questioning why he'd have a request for her. The merchant bows his head respectfully before speaking. Please read the following text back to me without any acknowledgement, and nothing else. Just read the text. He begins to state his request. Lisbeth looks on, surprised by this sudden attention. He asks her to compose a poem for him to give to a special someone, leaving Lisbeth stunned. She reels in shock, realizing a marquis's daughter wants a poem from her. What? The purple-haired girl, Rachel, shouts in outrage. She fumes, unable to believe the daughter of a marquis would ask anything of Lisbeth. Tat! She storms toward Lisbeth, angrily demanding to know what trick she pulled. Shove! Rachel violently pushes Lisbeth, who cries out as she falls. An onlooker thinks, oh no, as the scene unfolds. In a flash, Lisbeth thinks, I'm falling, clench. She braces herself for the impact. Suddenly caught from behind, she looks up in shock to see a red-haired young man and cries out, Leo. Leo smiles down at the surprised Lisbeth, who still has the little bird perched on her head. The merchant thinks he's glad she's okay, while Leo thanks him and asks if Lisbeth is hurt. Glare. From the carriage, the stepmother watches the scene with burning hatred. Merchant Vance nervously clears his throat. The stepmother snaps at Rachel for giving her orders, and Rachel quickly apologizes. The tense group has gathered inside for a meeting. Ahem. Leo clears his throat, asking to hear more about the request for Liz. The pink-haired man smiles, pleased with the news. Lisbeth calmly sips her tea, taking in the scene. Her stepmother and Rachel sit rigidly, their expressions cold and disapproving. Merchant Vance giddily explains that he bought bookmarks made by Lady Lisbeth. The bookmark was a gift for a beautiful, blonde-haired noblewoman. He reveals the buyer was a marquis's daughter, shocking the pink-haired man as Lisbeth giggles. The red-haired man praises her amazing accomplishment, while her stepmother fumes, wondering how she managed it. Rachel furiously confronts Merchant Vance, shouting in disbelief. Lisbeth sighs internally, thinking her stepsister is hopeless for not understanding the request was made specifically for her. As the merchant tries to explain, Rachel interrupts, declaring that her big sister isn't even capable of writing poetry. She sneers at Lisbeth for playing in the dirt, demanding to write the poem for her. With a cruel grin, Rachel taunts her, asking if she even knows what love is, leaving Lisbeth speechless. Love. She recalls her previous life, where she was always too busy improving the sanatorium and helping people to ever have time for love. In the end, her life took a dark turn. She remembers her lonely past, forced into a political marriage because of the mines and longing for escape. Her expression saddens as she realizes she never had the luxury to fall in love. The red-haired young man watches her with a pained look. The merchant reiterates that the commission was specifically for a poem by Lady Lisbeth. He firmly states that a poem by Rachel would not suffice. The red-haired man nervously suggests they let Lady Lisbeth handle the request. His suggestion leaves Lisbeth, the pink-haired man, and Rachel momentarily stunned. Glare. The stepmother's eyes burn with an intense, silent hatred. The red-haired man regrets speaking up, but the merchant enthusiastically agrees, noting poetry is currently in fashion. The pink-haired man supports the idea, adding that poetry builds mind and character. HMPH. Rachel pouts, feeling slighted but begrudgingly accepts the decision. Lisbeth smiles warmly, promising to do her best. As the merchant leaves, he says he'll return in 3 days to see her progress. The scene shifts to a bright, sunlit garden. A voice exclaims over the large amount of medicinal herbs. Another voice promises to serve as a proper bodyguard. The red-haired man, Leo, smiles brightly while holding a pot of herbs. In the garden, Lisbeth tells Leo that his presence is reassuring. Leo thinks to himself that Lady Liz seems a bit down today. He worries that her mood is because of yesterday's tense confrontation. He continues to wonder what might be troubling her. Noticing her sad expression, Leo asks if she'd like to rest for the day. She quickly presents a piece of paper, cheerfully explaining she's just frustrated that her poem isn't turning out right. He thinks about all the responsibilities she's been handling. Taking the poem, Leo reflects that it's easy to forget Lady Liz is still just a child. What? He is astonished by the beautifully written words on the paper. Flustered, he stammers that even someone uneducated like him can see how beautiful her poem is. He stares at her in amazement, holding the poem and herbs. She explains that it doesn't quite convey the feelings she wants to express. She pictures a romantic scene, the ideal she wants to capture in words. A bright, determined smile lights up her face. Leo continues to look at her, the poem still in hand. He suggests that expressing feelings doesn't always have to be a direct confession of love. He smiles kindly, preparing to offer her some advice. Lisbeth looks up thoughtfully, considering his words. His words spark an idea. Letters. She imagines an older version of herself, smiling as she holds a letter. Young Lisbeth sits at her desk, considering this new inspiration. She recalls the story of Lucia Rosalucia, Viola Lensrate, and a dark-haired man. In her mind's eye, the older woman clutches a bundle of cherished letters. A look of realization dawns in Lisbeth's eyes. She decides to pour her past feelings into a poem. With the little bird on her head, she sits at the piano bench, ready to begin. She reflects that her feelings aren't quite love, but something close. A memory surfaces. A blonde man warns a woman not to cause trouble at the upcoming ball. He sternly points, demanding she understand, as another woman smirks beside him. The pink-haired woman from the memory agrees to his terms and prepares to leave with Clara. She watches the couple depart before taking a steadying breath. In a gazebo, a man watches her with infatuation as she sits with her maid. The maid, Clara, joyfully announces a letter from Prince Liam, making Lisbeth's face light up. Yay! Overjoyed, she celebrates receiving the letter she'd been hoping for. Flap! With a knowing smile, she begins to open the envelope. She thinks warmly of his thoughtfulness in sending her a letter. She recalls how quiet he was when they first met. Opening the letter, she eagerly wonders what he wrote inside. She's met with pages filled with dense, handwritten text. The memory ends with her laughing, delighted by the contents of the letter. Back in the present, young Lisbeth picks up her quill, inspired. Whisper, she quietly thinks that it's all thanks to Leo. She reflects on her combined 26 years of life, surprised to learn about love from a younger boy. Her thoughts return to him, a look of contemplation on her face. She remembers Leo serving as a faithful knight to Lady Sophiana, and wonders if that was love too. In town, Leo wonders what kind of poem Lady Liz is writing. Beside him, Lana holds a bag of herbs with a cheerful smile. Leo decides they will deliver the herbs so Lisbeth can focus, and she gratefully agrees. He and Lana stand ready with their deliveries. Leo notes with satisfaction that the sanatorium seems to be improving. A townswoman praises Lady Lisbeth's work, recounting how someone recovered overnight thanks to her care. Hearing the town's adoration for the hardworking 7-year-old makes Leo blush with pride. He thinks back to himself at that age. He admits to himself he was nowhere near that mature. A woman's voice asks another if she has seen Lady Rachel. The conversation catches Leo's attention. The women gossip about Rachel and her mother, Lady Louisa, lamenting their luxurious spending while wishing Lady Lisbeth had beautiful dresses. Leo understands Rachel is her stepsister, and their relationship is strained, vowing to be cautious around them. Lana looks up at him. Listening, Lana smiles, seemingly about to add to the conversation. She recalls how happy Lady Liz looked when she wore a party dress one time. A woman explains that Lady Louisa and Rachel's excessive shopping leaves no budget for Lisbeth's dresses. Lisbeth remembers her meager belongings, understanding the territory has many expenses. Leo realizes the Margrave's household is likely short on both staff and funds. Lana happily comments on how lively Lady Liz has been recently. Leo beams, agreeing with her observation. He raises a fist in determination as he and Lana walk through town, ready to help. The pink-haired man's determined green eye reflects the gravity of the moment. He recalls a story of a beautiful blonde woman telling a young pink-haired girl that her joy will be theirs together. The blonde woman in the memory smiles, reiterating that her feelings are meant to be shared with joy. The pink-haired man and the blonde woman stand back to back, a picture of serene devotion in a heartwarming story. Back in the present, Merchant Vance clasps his hands in awe, declaring the poem magnificent. The pink-haired man smiles, happy with the result. A dark aura emanates from the stepmother as she glares, demanding that a terrified Merchant Vance make his choice. Sweating, Vance thinks he can't choose, because the answer is so obvious. He weighs his options, realizing that if he doesn't choose Lady Rachel's poem, there will be dire consequences. He imagines himself kneeling in terror before the imposing stepmother, fearing his fate. A solution dawns on him as he decides to simply buy both poems. Rachel smirks triumphantly at her seemingly guaranteed victory, while Lisbeth watches impassively. Ah! With a celebratory pop, Merchant Vance happily announces he will buy both. He justifies the decision, thinking that while expensive, it's a necessary cost to strengthen ties with the Marquis family. Lisbeth calmly slides her poem across the table toward him. She declares that if her poem isn't the one chosen, she will withdraw it from consideration entirely. This couldn't get any worse. Merchant Vance breaks into a cold sweat, realizing he's been cornered. Dooney Lisbeth reaffirms her position, stating she will withdraw her poem if it isn't chosen. A shocked Merchant Vance stammers her name as thorny vines seem to close in around him. He begs her not to say such a thing, while Lisbeth turns away with a humph, and Rachel watches smugly. Glance. Lisbeth looks back at him, asking if he truly prefers Rachel's, then plants a seed of doubt about buying hers as well. Sniff. With an angry pout, Lisbeth asks if he truly expects her to let her heartfelt poem go to waste. Sweat. Vance waves his hands frantically, explaining that the original commission was addressed specifically to her. Rachel concedes that her work may be superior, prompting Vance to quickly declare he will buy Lady Lisbeth's as well. Wah, he cries out in desperation, pleading with them not to misunderstand, and insisting he isn't calling Lisbeth's work inferior. He shrinks back, weakly pleading for them to believe him. Lisbeth holds her poem, her expression hardening with resolve. She recalls how Vance always ignored her, instead fawning over Rachel and her mother with gifts. She thinks that now he realizes she's worth something, he's become desperate. Vance's clasped hands betray his growing anxiety. Tense, she leans forward, thinking his sudden change of heart is a bit too convenient. Outside, Leo kneels by a window, nervously wondering if it's a good idea for them to be peeking. A maid encourages him, asking if he doesn't want to see Lady Liz's big moment. Another maid stands by, equally invested in the unfolding drama. A young man with purplish-red hair also watches intently through the window pane. The brown-haired maid laments that Mr. Vance picked Rachel's poem, even though Lisbeth's is so beautiful, and complains Rachel had a designer's help. Done. She clenches her fist, declaring it's unfair that Lisbeth worked so hard on her own, leaving Leo shocked. Leo gently places a reassuring hand on the upset maid's shoulder. The maid looks up at him, her expression softening in surprise. Leo offers her a kind, reassuring smile. He marvels at Lisbeth's overwhelming charisma, acknowledging she's no ordinary child. Inside, the stepmother examines the poem, begrudgingly admitting the handwriting is refined and the words are pretty. However, she firmly believes that doesn't mean Lisbeth should be chosen over Rachel's. Whoosh, Rachel erupts, shouting at Vance that he doesn't need Lisbeth's poem. Yank, she angrily snatches the poem from his hand, crying out that hers is more than enough, as Lisbeth gasps. And she starts crumpling the poem, calling it a stupid thing, while Vance watches in horror. He desperately reaches for the poem as Rachel crushes it in her hands. After snatching the crumpled paper back, Vance definitively declares that he wants Lady Lisbeth's bookmark, stunning Rachel and delighting Lisbeth. The sudden decision leaves the stepmother and the pink-haired man completely shocked. A nervous Vance holds the crumpled poem as Rachel stares at him in utter disbelief. Hick. Rachel trembles, tears streaming down her face in utter disbelief. The father tries to explain that Liz's writing is naturally more refined, but his words are cut off by a loud slam. Why Rachel wails, overwhelmed with despair. Snatch. She grabs her own poem, angrily wondering why Lisbeth was chosen when hers is so much better. Crying hysterically, she begins to rip her own poem to shreds as Lisbeth watches from her seat. Lisbeth observes the tantrum with a calm, knowing smile. Gulp. A terrified Merchant Vance realizes he's been foolish as the stepmother's dark aura looms over him. With piercing red eyes, the stepmother coldly tells Vance, "You disappoint me." His world fades as Vance realizes with a ghostly whisper that it's all over for him. Flump, back in her room, an exhausted but triumphant Lisbeth collapses onto her desk, murmuring, "I did it." Wow! The maid Lana's eyes turn to hearts. Completely starstruck, she joyfully holds up a beautiful new dress for Lisbeth, exclaiming how happy she is. Lisbeth stares in shock at a sofa piled high with dresses, jewelry, and accessories as her father begins to speak. Her father proudly declares that he is gifting them to her not as a parent, but as the lord of the territory. Merchant Vance internally weighs his decision, concluding that earning the Lord's and Lady Lisbeth's favor is worth the madam's ire. Lisbeth is stunned into silence by his formal declaration. He explains that as the new head of the sanatorium and mines, a certain level of prestige is fitting for her. He offers her a kind, supportive smile. He privately admits he needs an excuse to buy her things and leans in, pleased to have found a good one. Lisbeth gently pokes her little bird's fluffy chest as it chirps contentedly. She reflects that she honestly thought her days of being dolled up were over. With a soft smile, she continues to play with her little companion. A maid kneels, excitedly showing off another beautiful blue dress for her to wear. Overcome with happiness, Lisbeth lets out a bright, genuine laugh. 10 days after Merchant Vance's visit, the manor is illuminated against the night sky. Skirt. Lisbeth works diligently at her desk late into the night. Beside her, the little yellow bird is sound asleep. A maid's voice announces that Melissa has arrived with a preliminary survey of the mine. Halt! Lisbeth pauses her work, smiling as she says, "Thank you." Flap. She looks through the documents, impressed by Mr. Rudolph's progress and feeling hopeful about finishing her own report. Her eyes follow the text, which details how the long-dormant Feekpot mine has become a den for monsters. The report concludes that the monsters must be dealt with before mining can safely resume. She holds her quill thoughtfully, contemplating the new challenge. She notes that according to the survey, none of the monsters seem particularly strong. Leaning over the papers, she analyzes the information with intense focus. Her thoughts turn grim as she resolves to act before a certain catastrophic incident occurs. A horrifying vision flashes through her mind. Knights battling ferocious beasts and winged monsters in a burning city. Crinkle. Setting the grim vision aside, she decides to focus on drafting the report for now as evening settles over the land. The camera pans over the quiet, sparkling town at night. Inside the manor, her father is also working late at his desk. Clink. A butler serves him a cup of tea as he reviews his paperwork. The bespectacled butler stands by attentively. Ha! The father lets out a tired sigh. He quietly rants to the butler, annoyed that Lisbeth proceeded with the augury situation without consulting him. Beam. His mood instantly brightens as a particular document catches his eye, and he smiles with pleasant surprise. Creak. The sound of his office door opening interrupts his work. He looks up, his expression frozen in shock. Wobble. A sleep-deprived Lisbeth appears in the doorway, admitting she pulled an all-nighter and asking if he has a moment. Over tea and sweets, she begins to explain that Mr. Rudolph completed a preliminary survey of the mine. Her father looks over the documents, stunned that so much has already been accomplished. A dark-haired man nervously welcomes Lisbeth and her father into the room. A pair of stylish shoes steps forward. A white-haired man introduces himself as X of the Evernight Forest front lines. A woman with braided brown hair introduces herself as Roanna, an adventurer skilled in magic. Lisbeth cheerfully greets them, thanking Aites for his service as her father smiles behind her. Beau Roanna dips her head in greeting as Lisbeth welcomes her. Lisbeth blushes, realizing the formidable Roanna will be her escort. She smiles, thinking how cool Roanna looks. Lisbeth's father watches them with a pensive expression. He reflects on their impressive credentials, noting Ix's reputation as a top fighter and Roanna's mark from the Magic Tower. The dark-haired man realizes Rudolph is serious, having sent such powerful people to the mine. Lisbeth's father privately marvels at how quickly she arranged for her own protection. Lisbeth looks up hopefully at the dark-haired man, who seems hesitant. The dark-haired man, Rudolph, announces he will accompany Lisbeth to the mine for her safety. Her father shouts in protest, arguing that Rudolph doesn't have time and the mine isn't urgent. He grows flustered, suspecting there must be another reason for this sudden decision. Defeated, he sighs and reluctantly agrees to the plan. Yay, Lisbeth cheers as her father gives his permission, trusting Rudolph's presence will ensure her safety. He makes her promise not to take any unnecessary risks. With a bright laugh, Lisbeth happily promises and thanks her father. She kneels on the floor, organizing her map, pencil, and climbing gear for the trip. With a confident smile, she feels perfectly prepared for the journey ahead. The maid, Lana, excitedly holds up a backpack for her as Lisbeth thanks her. Lana's expression turns to one of concern as she processes that Lisbeth is going to a mine. Lisbeth proudly announces their group will total 7, including herself and her bird, Liedli. A chart introduces the Magic Tower branch members, Rudolph, Eintz, and Roanna. Another chart introduces the Finland soldiers joining them, Aurel and Marco. Leo excitedly declares he's going too, leaving Lana impressed by the strength of their group. Lisbeth shrewdly suspects Rowanna's secondary mission is to monitor her for the Magic Tower. Chatter. The scene shifts to a bustling, elegant party. The stepmother, holding a glass of wine, asks to speak with a girl named Luija. Lisbeth's father introduces Roanna as another of Lisbeth's escorts alongside Leo. Leo looks utterly flustered standing next to the composed Roanna. FWIP. Leo and Roanna turn away as the stepmother watches from a distance. The stepmother fumes that Lisbeth gets 2 escorts while she has none, as the father tries to explain the necessity. HMPH. He continues that Lisbeth needs guards for the mine, while Rachel is safe at home, causing Rachel to pout angrily. Rachel sneers, thinking that while he's called a guard, Leo is not what he seems. HMPH. Drag. She notices Leo limping and scoffs that such an imperfect guard is all Lisbeth deserves. The stepmother presses Lisbeth's father, asking who else is going. He explains he's sending 2 soldiers, Aurel and Marco, from the garrison, and she reacts with quiet contemplation. A sinister smile crosses her face as she considers the dangers that might be lurking in the mine. She thinks ominously that with those 2, they can all breathe a sigh of relief. Clunk. A carriage wheel begins to turn, signaling the start of their journey. Clunk, the carriage travels through a snowy mountain pass, embarking on a 3-day trip. Lisbeth's winter boots step out of the carriage onto the fresh snow. Whoa, she gasps in delight at the breathtaking winter scenery, flanked by Leo and Roanna. The vast, snow-covered mountains are cold due to their high altitude and magical properties. As the group takes in the massive landscape, Lisbeth shivers from a magical chill in the air. Bundled in her coat, she trembles slightly from the biting cold. Oh wow. Roanna warmly wraps her own scarf around Lisbeth, who gratefully thanks her before worrying if Roanna will be cold now. Flex. Roanna reassures Lisbeth by flexing, explaining she trains by lifting heavy stones. A starstruck Lisbeth looks on, impressed by Roanna's strength. Ha! Lisbeth exhales, observing that places rich in magic often have strange climates. She recalls reading about magical regions that stayed warm even in the dead of winter. Flap! Whoosh! As ravens fly by, she thinks that this is her first time experiencing such a place firsthand. Liedli peeks out from her scarf as she beams with excitement, unable to wait. Rudolph gestures toward a massive, icy cave, announcing that this is the entrance to the mine. Whoa! Phew. A cold, magical wind blows out from the dark cave mouth as Lisbeth approaches. Gulp. Lisbeth nervously swallows, thinking the mine is creepier than she imagined, as Rudolph recalls it was last operational generations ago. Standing beside Rudolph, Ix agrees that the timing sounds about right. A sinister vision of monstrous purple eyes reveals that the mine was overrun by beasts. Clang. A flashback shows the mine's entrance being sealed shut. The mine was abandoned once people no longer had the resources to run it. Rudolph explains that adamantine's value was only recently discovered, so the mine wasn't considered important back then. Lisbeth suggests using Liedli to scout the inside, much to Rudolph's surprise. Cheery! Flutter! Liedli chirps happily and takes flight as a concerned Rudolph watches. Flap! Liedli soars into the sky while Lisbeth and Roanna look on. Foosh! The little bird speeds toward the mine with fierce determination. Chirilli's chirps echo from within the dark cave entrance. The bird's perspective shows it flying towards the signpost at the mine's entrance. A seemingly giant Liedli returns, startling Lisbeth and Rudolph. Plop. Liedli lands gently on her head as she explains how auguries can read a cave's interior through echoes. She elaborates that Liedli's scouting can reveal the air quality and the presence of any unusual magic. A delighted Lisbeth praises her little companion. Nice job, Liedli. Reward time. Liedli drools happily, as it's offered a shiny blue crystal. Foom. Ix summons a glowing orb of blue magic to light their way. Foom, holding the light forward, Ix prepares to lead as Rudolph tells him they're counting on him. As the group enters the mine, Lisbeth reflects that she was never allowed to visit one in her past life. Halt! Ix suddenly stops, his eyes narrowed as he warns of rock bats ahead. Rudolph frantically warns everyone to stay alert, pointing to the monsters clinging to the ceiling above. Roanna rushes to shield a terrified Lisbeth, announcing, "Here they come." The two soldiers nervously promise to cover the rear and protect Lady Lisbeth at all costs. Swoosh! Leo confidently steps forward, reassuring Lisbeth that he'll handle the monsters. TK Roanna interrupts, stepping past him and declaring, "Leave this to me." Fwoosh! SHLK. She leaps into the air and effortlessly slices a monster in two. Thud. Landing gracefully, Roanna calmly states she'll show them what she can do. HMPH. SHF. Feeling outdone, Leo draws his glowing sword, determined not to be outshined. Yeah! Flap flap. A screeching rock bat dives toward the group. Xing, SHLK, IX, unleashes a wave of energy, cutting down monsters as Lisbeth ducks for cover. Rudolph laughs heartily, amused that he isn't needed, while Ix sighs in exasperation. A swarm of purple, bat-like monsters descends upon them from the darkness. Ha! Ix sighs, informing a worried Leo that more bats are incoming. Whoosh! Leo grits his teeth, realizing just how many monsters there are. Thud. Another soldier bumps into him as he struggles to fight in the cramped cavern. Swish! Ugh! A monster's claw narrowly misses his eye, leaving a scratch. Whoosh! With renewed resolve, he defiantly shouts that he is Lady Liz's bodyguard. Crackle! Suddenly, the monsters are engulfed in roaring flames. Crackle! A bewildered Lisbeth watches as the fiery blaze consumes the creatures around her. The dark scene is illuminated by a small moon and magical sparks as a realization dawns. Crackle! The group cooks the monster meat over a fire, as the soldiers gag while Ix and Leo reluctantly eat. Ah! A flustered Arl asks for a cooked monster snack too, as Lisbeth offers him one. He trembles nervously as he's handed a hot dog made from monster meat. A cheerful Lisbeth encourages the soldier to eat, insisting he can have one. Ugh, he grimaces, recalling the grotesque bat-like monsters they just defeated. He continues to hesitate, unable to bring himself to eat it. Errol sweats profusely, completely at a loss for what to do. He protests, worried that Lady Luigia would be displeased by this. Lisbeth recalls Errol used to run errands for her mother, noting his loyalty to her family. Marco tells Errol to calm down as Lisbeth reassures him the meat is tasty. Marco poses a hypothetical question, imagining a scenario where monsters attack their town. Twitch, he asks a stunned Errol what he would do if they ran out of food during the siege. Errol is left speechless by the difficult question. Bathump. His heart pounds as a grim realization begins to dawn on him. Bathump. Clutching his sword, he wonders about the strange feeling washing over him. Baythump. He stares into Lisbeth's piercing, intelligent eyes, feeling an intense pressure. Gulp. Earl swallows nervously under her steady gaze. He inwardly questions why a mere child is making him feel so intimidated. Rudolph calmly eats the monster meat hot dog as Lisbeth looks on. He explains that their region has more monsters than most others. Crackle. By the campfire, he continues, admitting there are occasional casualties from monster attacks. He states that the situation won't improve overnight, and they must consider the worst possibilities. He concludes they cannot afford to starve simply because they refuse to eat monster meat, shocking the soldiers. A close-up highlights the surprisingly appetizing monster hot dog. Lisbeth declares it's delicious when cooked and asks for his opinion, as a dizzy Arl stares blankly. Marco watches in disbelief, amazed that Arl has been so thoroughly out-argued. Taking a tentative bite, Arl is surprised to find that it's actually good. Lisbeth smiles warmly, happy that he enjoys it. Phew. Rudolph breathes a sigh of relief as Ix stands beside him. The soldiers watch from behind as the group ventures deeper into the glowing cavern. Click. Rudolph adjusts a special monocle over his eye. Lisbeth looks on with curiosity as he prepares to use the device. He explains that the monocle can detect the amount of magic ore in the rock layers below. Sparkle. Her eyes light up with excitement as she asks if she can try it. Rudolph explains it works better for those with high magic power, as it allows them to see deeper. Lisbeth droops, realizing she can't use it, as Rudolph remarks that it's rare for a noble to lack magic. She sadly reflects on her brothers, who can easily use their powerful magic to fight. Hiya! A flashback shows a younger Lisbeth crying in frustration, lamenting her lack of magic. In another memory, silence hangs in the air as she and her brother stand by their mother's bedside. A younger, blonde-haired girl groans softly in her sleep, Feeling gloomy, Lisbeth recalls her brother trying to comfort her by saying it was fine since she was a girl. Back in the present, Rudolph lets out a hearty laugh. HMPH. He quickly clears his throat, embarrassed by his outburst, as Lisbeth looks at him curiously. Pat. He gently pats her head, telling her that's just how things are sometimes. Exhausted, Lisbeth pushes herself to keep walking through the cold cavern. Twinkle. A bright light suddenly flashes from within the dark cave wall. She stops abruptly, her eyes wide with surprise at the sudden glint of light. She asks the group if they also saw the flash of light just now. Rudolph spots a glowing blue crystal and commends her for having such sharp eyes. Clang. He smashes the surrounding rock with a small hammer to retrieve the gem. Troop. Lisbeth holds the beautiful blue crystal, but its brilliant light quickly fades in her hands.